don't breathe like it used to breathe. My grandfather held the soil like scripture in his hands, but now the fields are wired tied, a fortune of nearly 500 billion running under satellite light. Just 2% decide the table for 330 million souls, while the hum of iron engines sends our birthright to the cold. They're pulling 5 gigabytes an hour, rising like a predator now, sent upward to a corporate sky. The farmers locked outside. And though nearly 20 million work the geese, only a tiny handful touch the land. The machine grows tall, the people small, their stories slipping from their hands. Oh, the rule remembers freedom, even buried in the dark. You can chain the lie with numbers, but you cannot chain the spark. This ain't farming, it's a wheel of steel and coal. Your grandfather's farm's a checkpoint on a technocratic road. They take the seed, they take the soil, they take the hours from your spine, and the machine keeps pulling everything 1 acre at a time. A quarter of the world's sea, locked behind the corporate gate. You can't save your own just by again. Let algorithms choose your fate. And nearly 10 billion animals push through corridors of chrome, where the land once sang, the servers drone. What used to feed now grown. There's over 3 trillion in equipment. Farmers rent but never keep, and well over 300 billion in debt, pulling families in deep. Call it progress, call it glory, but I've read the hidden lines. The machine is fed by labor, and it starves the working mind. The land still knows your footsteps, even under grids and wires. The machine can dim the daylight, but it cannot drown the fire. This ain't farming, it's a wheel of steel and coal. A tiny few hold the compass for the many down below. They count your days, they count your years, they tally blood and time, and the machine keeps taking families down, 1 story at a time. Your grandfather's land's been patterned, your pasture quantified, but no algorithm knows the truth of what your hands decide. This ain't farming, it's a kingdom built on screens. They turn the soil to a number, turn the farmers into means. But the land remembers kindness, and the people still alive. We outlive every empire, 1 heartbeat at a time.
The bankers wrote their letters in shadows cold and deep, a promise forged of iron chains to bind us in our sleep. They called it just a progress, a digital decree, but freedom has no barcode and souls are not for leave. It's the final countdown, the reckoning of men. Crypto, gold, and silver rise where paper dies again. They dream of central power, of money's iron cage, but voices rise unbroken to light this modern age. From DC halls to Davos, the tyrants stake their claim. They preach of safety, justice, but hunger for the chain. They hide behind the slogans, they whisper, trust the plan, but every law they're passing just enslaves the common man. It's the final countdown, the reckoning of men. Crypto, gold, and silver rise where paper dies again. They dream of central power, of money's iron cage, but voices rise unbroken to light this modern age. The merchants and the dreamers, the rebels and the wise, take refuge in the ledgers where the watchful state can pry. In Zano's cloak of shadows, in Monero's quiet streams, they guard the ancient promise of liberty's old dream. It's the final countdown, the reckoning of men. Crypto, gold, and silver rise where paper dies again. They dream of central power, of money's iron cage, but voices rise unbroken to light this modern age. So raise your hands in firelight, let tyrants hear the sound. The people's last defiance is the truth that won't back down. It's more than just survival, it's more than just a stand. It's freedom's final chorus song across this burning land.
Years, tick tock, choose. They sold you hope with a velvet flame, wrapped in the stars, but it feels the same. Heroes with halos drawn in smoke, whispered of freedom while tightening the yoke. I taste the static, I see the snare. Freedom on paper, ashes in there. If love is consent, if choice is a prayer, why are the doorways guarded by air? Gates of silence, walls of glare.
Don't ask for permission,
Just breathe and say no. Kill a blue light altar. Let the wild seeds grow. Raise your hands and fire where the storm winds blow. We won't comply. Won't comply, won't comply. Won't comply. Won't comply. Seen bricks, mirrors, Morocco chains, oracle ladders, genetic veins. Wearables whisper, lies still obey. Palantir angels counting your days. They call it healing. I hear the gears turning our pulse into shadowed years. If truth is a river, then break the dam. Find the healers with the lanterns in hand. Gardens and roots, a medicine stand. Don't ask for permission. Just breathe and say no. Cut the tethered heavens. Feel the current flow. Write your name in lightning on the midnight road. We won't comply. Won't comply. Won't comply. Won't comply. Relight eyes in a crown of glass. Genius rails where the shadows pass. Quality chains on the things you own. Exit the grid or become their throne. War. If falling is fate, cry, then let me fall free. Choose now. Don't ask for permission. Just breathe and say no. Like the parallel lanterns everywhere you go. Trade it in the open where the wild hearts know. We won't comply. Won't comply. We won't comply. Don't ask for permission. Plant gardens in cold. Zano in pockets, a medicine road. Hand after hand till the signals grow. We won't comply. We won't comply. 3 years. Choose now.
Oh, 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 live free or die, but death's not the worst. It's waking up empty, it's dying of thirst. Trading your days for insurance and pills, while the machine builds your cage and you're paying the bills. Quiet desperation, that's the real grave. A life half lived as a comfortable slave. This ain't what you were born for, you know it's true. You feel it in your chest, breaking through. They're wiring the walls, closing in, tracking your dollars underneath your skin. Left and right, same throne, same crown. No one stands up, no one makes a sound. They hand you a ballot like it means something real. 2 wings of 1 bird, same deal, same steel. We say no, no to the chase, no to the dollar running through our veins, no to the white coats, no to the lies. This is the day that we rise. It's hurts right here, it's hurts right now. Your rights are yours, you take them back, not giving out. Not from the left, not from the right. They were always yours, now step into the light. The daylight breaks
Welcome back to the Aaron Day Show. This is season 2, episode 48. Very excited about tonight's episode. I've been working towards this for a while. In fact, I'm still kind of coding the last few minutes of it as we're going through the podcast. Tonight, we're going to be launching the beta version of OSARA, which is an online medical tourism marketplace to start, but I really want this to be the beginning of a completely decentralized healthcare system, a replacement for the healthcare system that we have. So my wife and I have been working on this quite a bit. And so what you're going to see tonight is there's a bug bounty. There's $1,000 in free Freedom Dollar that we're offering. The official launch of the site to the entire world is going to be on January the 1st. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. But we wanted to do that in line with New Year's resolutions because, as you'll see, there's some aspects to this. We really want to build a movement of people canceling their insurance, setting up medical trusts, and moving to medical tourism as a starting point. But then down the line, we're going to introduce other tools that help empower people to take care of their health so that you don't even need to use medical tourism, and so that you can have control of your own health data. You can use technology and AI to get advice that's outside of the big pharma healthcare complex and interact with other people that may have a similar health condition as you have. So there's a big vision for this, but the starting point tonight, I'm going to show you, it is rough. And so just so your expectations are, you can earn rewards for reporting some of the issues. We really want your feedback. I mean, the whole point of this is to make it easy for other people to use. And, sometimes I can get engrossed in this, to the point where I'm working on this stuff all the time. But the important thing is that it's easy for other people to use. So if you look at something like, oh, this sucks, or why not do this? It is conceivable that we forgot about some obvious things, and that there are some really excellent ideas out there that we can adopt. And so we want to have all of those. And I'm going to be working on rapidly improving the site every day from this point forward, but also with the idea of working towards a January the 1st official launch. So before we get into that, I'm going to do kind of the typical recap of what's gone on in the last couple of episodes. The last episode was great. We had on Hakeem Anwar, and I encourage you to look at that episode. There's going to be a lot more about that. Hakeem has Above Phone, which is a de-Googled phone, and we are going to be launching in the new year a daylight branded version of this de-Googled phone. And that phone will have on it pre-installed the Zano wallet, VPNet, VPN. It will have Mike Adams, Enoch AI right there on the phone, and it'll have easy access links to OSARA and all of the other daylight projects that we're working on. So to me, by the way, I mean, the theme with OSARA and everything that I'm doing moving into next year is it's all about action. I've spent a lot of time the last few years trying to educate people about the problem. And one of the things that Hakeem brought up on Monday, which I think is accurate based on the information that I've seen as well, is we only have until 2027. I mean, we're looking at a global rollout of digital IDs. We need to exit. The time to talk about using private decentralized alternatives is over. The time to actually start using them and telling others about it and scaling up, that is now, and that is 100% what all of next year is about. So if we can make it easy for people to use privacy coins, privacy self-custody AIs through this phone, start to exit the healthcare system through OSARA and many of the other things that are going to be launched next year, throughout this year, and then all of the other great projects, which I'll talk about an update with Confidential Layer here shortly, in the Zano ecosystem, we are ready to actually build and use. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited about the relationship with Above Phone. I should be receiving mine within the next week, and so that's going to be my go-to phone. The episode prior to that, season 2, episode 46, was about the Epstein-Bitcoin coup. And I'm going to continue to talk about this because, as you know, if you have been following this, if you've read my book, many of the articles I have suggested that, I thought there was a clear link between Epstein and the hijacking of Bitcoin, and not only the hijacking of Bitcoin, but the simultaneous funding of the development of 3 US CBDC pilots between MIT and the Federal Reserve. It was somewhat speculative because we knew that Epstein had invested in the MIT Multimedia Lab, but we didn't know for sure if those funds were earmarked for Bitcoin or for these other projects. And the House released some of the Epstein files a few weeks ago, and those emails proved conclusively that Epstein funded Bitcoin core developers when there was, a breakdown at the Bitcoin Foundation. And more specifically, he funded the Bitcoin core developer that went on to be a co-author of Project Hamilton, which is the US retail CBDC pilot. So, at this point, people will try to downplay this and say, well, this is old news. It's not old news. It was previously speculation that Bitcoin maxis downplayed. Now it's confirmed fact. And no one wants to talk about it. Well, I'm going to continue to talk about it. We're going to use Technocracy Atlas, technocracyatlas.com, which is an AI chatbot that I've built that is based on a whole bunch of Patrick Wood's information. I think we have 38 million data elements in there, the Epstein files. I just added a whole bunch of additional materials recently. And then we're adding the ability for you to visualize connections, visualize money. The whole point is this is going to be the tool. When people say, well, who is they? When people talk about things like technocracy and globalism, oftentimes you'll see people just branch off and it's like, well, it's this group, it's this group. Well, here's a novel idea. Why don't we crowdsource the information and make it publicly available and figure out who they are? Let's figure out what they're doing. Let's figure out who is funding it, and and figure out how to make to do something about it and provide transparency. So, anyway, more on that coming up. I'm going to go through this briefly here tonight. I'm going to recap. excuse me. Season 2, episode 40, which was an episode that I previously did that was on medical tourism. So this was before we launched or were even working on OSARA. This was just kind of the original idea behind it. And so I'm going to give you a quick tour of that, very quick tour of that momentarily, just so that you understand why OSARA is so important, why medical tourism is so important, and how broken the US medical system is. People are not aware of how truly bad it is, how much they're getting ripped off, not only in terms of price, but in terms of quality. The system is unfixable. And so the political dynamic of, insurance across state lines or Medicare for all, neither of those are viable, and we'll demonstrate that. But before I move into that, there's another huge announcement today. The team at Zano and Confidential Layer put out this great video that I'll let speak for itself, but announcing the status of what's going on with the ability to make Bitcoin private. So let me play that.
We have achieved something unprecedented, a unified ideology, a world built on the pure, incorruptible foundation of Bitcoin, the money of the future. It is destiny, one cause, one resolve, the Bitcoin standard. Those who resist, who cling to shadow systems and contradictory truths, shall be silenced by the unstoppable engine of adoption. The Bitcoin standard is perfect. It is the future. We will prevail.
July 2025, Confidential Layer went live, allowing Bitcoin and Ethereum users to bridge their coins onto a completely private by default protocol, giving power back to the people. Whether traditional finance likes it or not, Bitcoin is now private.
What an awesome video. I thought that was great. That really encapsulates a lot of what's going on. I previously on multiple episodes I'm not going to play it now, but I have a 3-minute clip where I show, the first time I heard Roger Ver speak about Bitcoin at a New Hampshire event, about it being peer-to-peer digital cash and spreading freedom throughout the world. It's something that we can use to stop central bank tyranny. And then I play a clip of Michael Saylor talking about how, we don't really want to upset Visa and MasterCard and use it for payments. And, we don't want to upset, we got to pay the taxes and we want to comply with KYC. That clip that I play, the 3-minute clip, that shows 100% the hijacking. But this confidential layer news, that kind of brings it back, right? This makes, I still don't like Bitcoin. It fixes one of the problems with Bitcoin. It doesn't fix the 7 transactions per second, but it does make Bitcoin private, and it makes Bitcoin private in a way that is very easy. So I will do an episode about confidential layer. There's some developments going on that I'm not sure what the timing is, but I'm going to wait so that I can show you a couple of different options of how you can use confidential layer in a couple of different wallets to make it really, really simple. But this is great news. I thought that was a great video. And if you're on X, go to Rothmus, ROTHMUS. That's his account. This is where this video was released. I encourage you to like and share the post there. I'd love to see that post get as many views as possible and get this particular message out, because unfortunately there are a lot of people that don't realize that Bitcoin still isn't private, and then for those that are aware that it's not private, they're not aware that there's an easy to use solution, or there have been mixing services where the developers are being thrown in prison, which is also a travesty. But now there's a technology solution to this that simplifies the whole equation and makes your Bitcoin private, makes it spendable with lower fees. And so that is confidential layer. It's available. It's integrated in the Edge wallet. I believe it's going to be in, or is already in, the Bitcoin.com wallet. And so that is just really exciting news for any Bitcoin holder that doesn't want to be tracked or be the object of a wrench attack, where increasingly people are being physically kidnapped and threatened with violence and having their keys stolen. So this is good news all the way around. I do want to highlight, I do have a 4th book. In fact, the Zano Unveiled book hasn't been published yet, but on the last episode, I actually created 2 books during the Q&A of the actual podcast itself. Created one on cloud seeding, and then one on the panopticon in the education system. Anyway, the whole point is that Mike Adams is just crushing it with books.brightlearn.ai. I mean, this thing is awesome. I checked today, there have been 350 books that have been created on this. And so the idea here is you can go to books, typing it in the chat now, books.brightlearn.ai, and you enter a prompt up to 75,000 characters. And Mike's system will create an entire book that is fact-checked based on all of this, phenomenal information that he has been collecting. Well, he's been collecting it for decades, but specifically the $2 million plus he spent building, the storage systems and everything to have all of the primary first source truth information out there. So these books are actually generated that have footnotes and references that are drawn from the real sources. So this isn't hallucination coming from a big tech model that was trained on Reddit. This is actually a system that Mike has built with real information that is directly referenced. So I think this is an amazing achievement, and I've even turned these into audiobooks, which I'm not going to show here tonight, but he also has some of the books that are created are also available in audiobook format, and so you can create your own books. I think he mentioned he wants to have something like 10,000 of these created in a fairly short period of time. I mean, this reduces the cost of information to almost zero. And if you saw the videos at the beginning, I mean, I've been working on a lot of things for the last 6 months, and I do now have a system for creating music videos that is streamlined, that I am continuing to improve upon. every day. So, so moving forward, the ability for you to create your own books based on real information, create your own videos, create your own educational content in whatever format is best for you, however you learn best, is really, really exciting to see. So with that said, we're going to move on to the OSARA stuff. And what I'm going to do now is, this is the quick tour of the presentation that I gave, season 2, episode 40, just to recap why this is important. So the US healthcare system is an absolute ripoff here. So to give you an example, a hip replacement in the United States costs $375,000. You can go to Thailand to a high quality resort, and the cost of the entire trip, including yourself and a partner, business class on a 5-star resort, including the procedure, the aftercare, and any medication, is $35,000. And by the way, the quality is higher. So this is actually literally what we're talking about here. This is not, when I talk to people about this idea, people are like, oh, this must be just cosmetic surgery, this must be low quality doctors, so on and so forth. The quality outcomes, obviously, if you search for the right ones, but are better than the United States at 80%, at 20% of the cost, and 80% discount. So, and this is complex heart surgeries, this is hip replacements, this is cancer treatment. There are many treatments that you can get overseas that aren't even available in the United States. So this is what we're talking about here. And so I just, huge numbers of people now, 14 million people engaging in medical tourism. It's not just from the United States to other places. There's a whole map of, people in different regions traveling to other places around the globe to get the best medical treatment. This is a massive, massive market. Medical tourism is a $100 billion annual market. It's growing at 25% per year. And I hope if we have any success with what we're doing, we can help really increase those numbers. So this isn't a niche thing anymore. The US healthcare system is literally bankrupting people, and people are sitting around waiting to die or waiting to go bankrupt using our completely broken system. Medical tourism dates all the way back to 2500 BC, and I'm not going to go through all this, the routes, but as I said, it's a 25% annual growth. And what we're seeing here, there are 100 million people in medical debt in the United States, and we've seen a 400% increase in healthcare costs. It's been doubled. I had a healthcare company that I started in 2004, and I know at the time it had been a few years in a row of double-digit increases. I don't think that's stopped since 2004. I mean, it's gotten to the point where this is the number 2 cost item for most corporations behind salaries. It's literally eating the economy, and the outcomes aren't great. In fact, I think something like 2 out of there were a couple of years out of 5 where the life expectancy declined even before COVID. So with all of them, whenever we spend $4 trillion a year on healthcare, we are not getting better outcomes. The other thing is, people don't understand how pricing works. So prior to 2021, it was illegal for hospitals to tell you their pricing. A bill was passed in 2021 that mandated that hospitals do provide their pricing. And every hospital has what's called a charge master, who's in charge of the price list. Well, but there was a little typical Congress situation. There was a little carve out that says, hey, if you don't want to disclose this information, you have to pay a $300 a day penalty. Well, it turns out it's much cheaper to pay $300 a day than it is to provide the information and let everybody know you're ripping them off. And so 95% of hospitals still don't make their cost information transparent. Just think about this for a second. We have no market. There is nothing market-based whatsoever about our healthcare system. But the fact that you can't even know the pricing is horrendous. But then once you actually find out about the pricing, and I'll go through this in more detail because I have this kind of information available on the OSARA site, but you're getting ripped off. And sometimes they mark this stuff up as much as 5,500%. And you don't even know, a 10-cent Tylenol, you may be billed $57. And again, there's no relationship between what they're charging you and what it costs. There's no rhyme or reason to it other than they charge whatever they can get away with. And of course, they can get away with whatever they want because there's no accountability. Excuse me. So every minute, somebody in the United States files for medical bankruptcy. And what might be more surprising is, I mean, this is 2/3 of overall bankruptcies in this country are related to medical bankruptcies. 75% of those people that file for medical bankruptcy actually were insured. So this is not even a question of, oh, you know, well, we should have Medicare for all or force people to buy insurance. Most of the people that file for medical bankruptcy have insurance. The range of options, and some of the things that are just fascinating about this, there's a place in Mexico called Molar City, which has, I think it's like a town of 5,000 people. They have 350 dentists. So it's obviously the highest percentage of per capita of dentists anywhere in the world. And, you can get a significant discount. What might cost $60,000 in the US is $8,000 in Mexico. But when you look into it, what's happening is a lot of the best doctors in the US are actually going to these other countries, because if you are a good doctor and you're in the United States, your hands are tied. You are basically told by the hospital, by the insurance company, by your medical malpractice insurance, by the industry itself, what kind of treatment options you can make available. And if you're a smart doctor, you realize that you're poisoning and killing people most of the time. So there's really no incentive for a good doctor to stay in the United States. All of the bureaucracy and everything provides no real financial motivation to stay here. So what you're finding is that there are these concentrated pockets all over the world. India has the best heart doctors, and so where you can get a $2,000 bypass surgery. Thailand is great for other things. Again, we provide all this information on the site, but a lot of these are Harvard, Johns Hopkins trained medical professionals that left the U.S. As an example, this is a facility in India where $123,000 cardiac bypass surgery in the US, they do for $7,900. And not only is it that much cheaper, they actually have a 98.5% success rate, which is higher than the Cleveland Clinic, and they have a lower infection rate than the US. And so this is common. And then there are other procedures, where like German hyperthermia and so on and so forth, they're actually banned by the FDA entirely. So this idea that we're leading in medical research and we're the most innovative and the rest of the world is paying for all of our research and everything else, all of that's fake. All that's complete BS. And so you can go on and on down the line. IVF, $30,000 in the US. It is $3,000, I think, I don't have notes for this. I want to say it's somewhere in Eastern Europe. We'll see when we get onto the site. You can get complete, executive diagnostics. You get a complete workup and exam for a fraction of the cost that you would find in the United States. And again, you get, the experience for a lot of these places. I guess the best example I could say is that a lot of these medical tourist destinations are like the Jetsons, and our medical system is like the Flintstones. Or another way of looking at it is, medical tourism is like a spa, and our system is like a prison. Our schools and hospitals and prisons all seem to have the very same aesthetic and actually similar kind of incentive models. Obviously, the detail here is in picking the facilities. You certainly can go to the wrong place. You can go to the wrong place in Mexico and somebody's going to kidnap you and harvest your organs. The whole point is, empowering you as the consumer to actually make a decision about your healthcare, which involves doing research, which is why we built the website, to help you navigate through all of that and to share all of that information. So that is essentially where we are. So I'm going to now log into the site. Now keep in mind, I was working on this literally as the opening music was playing, so it is completely possible that that there are some issues, and I do expect that to be the case. As I said, this is we're in a testing phase right now. But if you can go to oasara.com. I would recommend watching me go through it now, and so we may actually find some bugs that prevent you from even using it right now. But everything should be working. So let's see here. Just bear with me 1 second. I am going to have to switch. I'm going to have to switch windows here. All right, here we go. All right, let me share this screen instead. All right. Share screen. All right, see what's going on here with the loading. All right, something's loading. Let me see. I actually have to log in again. All right, bear with me 1 second. I made a last minute change to the way that the login system works. And by the way, one of the things that I'm doing for all of the sites is I'm implementing this magic link concept. So you might have seen this. Instead of having to actually have a password, you just have it send a link to your email, and then you click on the link, and that has you log in. So I want to move away from even having a database with passwords and doing all that other stuff. And eventually, you're going to be able to log in to all of these sites actually using your Zano wallet, although it is helpful to have the email address so that I can stay in touch with people. But I'm going to be moving towards using Zano and using Matrix, which is a decentralized social networking tool that you can log into with your Zano wallet to preserve your privacy. So anyway, that will be happening soon. So I'm just deploying something here, and should have the page back up here in a second. All right. Well, in any event, I'm also going to put the link if you want to join the chat. I'll start sending that out now as well if you want to join the live chat. And we can even go through some of this together, because there's quite a bit to hopefully to show. So let me just send around a couple of links here. There we go. Oh, a couple of our regulars aren't going to be able to make it. So let me see here. Just gonna bear with me. And my wife is not here yet either, so we are launching this together. But she may be in. Depending on how long this goes, she might be able to join us, but possibly not. So here we go. Let's see. All right, good. Now we got it. All right. Just let me share the correct window. Here we are. All right, there we go. oasara.com. So this is the main site. Obviously, very simple message. You can save 60 to 80% on medical procedures. You can compare JCI-accredited facilities. It doesn't, for some reason, it's not. I'm going to be debugging this in real time. All right. Try this one more time. All right, I'm going to disable this real quick. Excuse me, the login is not the important part for demonstrating this. So anyway. So this should only be another, hopefully, minute or two. But anyway, there's quite a bit that we can walk through here today. And as I said, the point is to get feedback, not only on what you see, but what you don't see. So if there are other ideas that you have about the site or other features that we could add, you can add those as well. And so we won't necessarily accept all of them, or we'll not necessarily accept all of them now, but what I will show you is that there is again, a bounty program where you can contribute your ideas. And if we accept your ideas, depending upon the kind of idea that it is, you can earn certain values in Freedom Dollar. So that's exciting. And I already know I want to add some more community features and some additional content, more than what we have here at the launch. But nevertheless, I want to make you aware of that. And let's see if this works. So. This is unfortunate. All right, well, I'll go through the parts that I can go through while we're waiting for this other stuff. What I will show you is the main part of this, which are the various facilities, 518 facilities. But I'll start off with the easy part. So I'll start off with the guide. So this guide is an intelligence center that basically provides an overview of what medical tourism is. And we already talked about some of this, but this is very important information to share with people who are largely unaware of this entire situation. This charge master concept is really important. So again, this is the hidden price list that each hospital has. So this is an actual example of a real charge master. The source on this is the RAND Corporation Hospital Pricing Survey. So you can see this is from a real hospital that they're charging for Tylenol. They charge $37 for Tylenol, and the cost is $10. That's a 37,000% markup. Surgical gloves, $53. Actual cost, $75. Alcohol swab, a simple alcohol swab, they charge $23. And again, understand, and we had somebody on in the live chat, I think on Monday, and I'm sure probably many of you, I'd love to hear your own experiences. And one of the things that I want to add to this site is for the ability for people to share their own personal experiences with the medical system, because they go out of their way to not provide transparency. They hide the pricing, and then they don't want people talking about it. So I want to create a site where people can share their medical bills. I mean, we should be shaming this system, because usually what will happen is, somebody's going to get a bill and then they're going to freak out about it, right? Because they might actually have to file for bankruptcy because of this medical bill, and they're embarrassed to talk about it. But at the same time, this is just because we've created this culture where we have no transparency, and apparently people have no expectation that they're going to have transparency, which is ridiculous, and something that is pretty counter to the way excuse me, any other market works. And so one of the things that I want this site to be is interactive. I want people sharing information. The way that we win is transparency. It's providing a real marketplace and a place where people can actually share information. Every law that you see, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, they're going to either be protecting the government or they're going to be protecting a carve out for crony industry players. And they actually swap sides as to which ones are protecting which side. I'll give you an example. This guy, Rick Scott, is a senator from Florida. And, and he's painted as this economic conservative. And so he's on all these panels, and he's like one of the go-to guys that people think is supposed to be economically literate. And he made all of his money in some company that was involved in Medicare fraud. These people have no set of principles, no set of understanding of market dynamics. They may have manipulated the system to make themselves money, but you're not going to. The Republican solution is not any better than the Democrat solution. The system is fundamentally flawed. It cannot be fixed. We need a new system. We need multiple new systems. We need, actually markets that aren't destroyed by cronyism and government. And instead, right now, what we're getting is the opposite. We're getting more government. Government now makes up 47% of overall healthcare costs. And so that's through HHS, that's through Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA. And at one point, it actually, I think during COVID, crossed over and was more than 50%. So, that's crazy. So anyway, I'll continue to go through here. All right, so the device markup conspiracy. Again, we're even talking about situations here where when you're looking at this and comparing this from a global marketplace perspective, we're talking about comparing apples to apples. We're not even talking about, hey, a hip implant in the US, may cost a lot more, but it's a different quality, different vendor. Well, it's not even the case. When you compare apples to apples, people are getting ripped off. So in a Belgium hospital, a Medtronic hip implant, in Belgium, it's $350. In Mexico, it's $1,200. In Thailand, it's $1,800. In the US, it's $13,000. So we're talking about the same factory, the same serial number, literally the same device. And insurance actually makes it worse. So again, I haven't explained this in more detail in other episodes, but insurance there's nothing in the way that they're regulated, in the way that they're allowed to charge for things that would cause or incentivize them to make things less expensive. So if you actually look at this, based on the way that the Obamacare was drafted, there's this 80-20 rule, which means insurance companies get to keep 20% of all healthcare spending as profit. Again, talk about a unholy alliance of government and corporate interests. They basically said, hey, here's the new pricing framework. You just get to keep 20% of the spending as profit. Well, so actually think about how that works. So then what is the incentive? The incentive is to have higher spending. The higher the spending is, the more money the insurance company is going to make. So higher hospital prices actually equals higher insurance profits. Again, this is not a market. This is an absurd situation. So I had looked at this at one point. I'd investigated the prospect of trying to build a cash-only situation in the US or crypto-based system. And what I found was, after talking to doctors and researching the situation, because of the way that malpractice insurance works and everything else, most doctors have to work within hospital systems now. And once you work within the hospital system, you are subject to not the rules of the hospital itself, which, because of the way a lot of other funding works, means you now have to take Medicaid patients. You can only take certain payment methods. You have to follow whatever the rules and the procedures are. So it's a real outlier situation. It's a very small percentage of doctors that you might even be able to find that can take cash that are outside of these other agreements. So you look at something like an appendectomy, insurance will bill $45,000. The cash price, if you can find that, is $3,000. Childbirth, $32,000 is what they bill insurance. $4,500 is the cash price. Knee MRI, $3,200 for insurance. $400 is the cash price. So this is just absolutely outrageous. And by the way, as this is going on, I have a live bankruptcy counter going. So as I said, every minute, so I guess we've been talking about this now for 7 minutes, 7 people in the United States have filed for medical bankruptcy. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the night where that is. So again, the numbers, 2/3 of all U.S. bankruptcies, 530,000 families file annually due to medical needs. The average medical debt at bankruptcy is $42,000. And then on top of that, you have 45,000 dying annually from a lack of health insurance. And so again, when you hear the political arguments, when you hear the right and the left talking about it, they'll say, well, this is part of the rationale for having Obamacare in the first place. Well, it's these uninsured it's the uncompensated care from the uninsured. I fought this in New Hampshire. It was a BS argument then, and it's proven to be BS. It was never a good argument, but these are the Republican talking points of why it makes sense to have these people in these risk pools, so that you don't have all these free riders and all of this uncompensated care. Well, it turns out that's not really what the problem is. These people going bankrupt had health insurance, 75%, 62% had a college education, 77% were homeowners. And that, by the way, is part of the other scam in all of this, which we'll talk about when we discuss setting up a medical trust. But yeah, the hospital will end up owning your house. So, tie people to these mortgages, and the house then becomes a piggy bank for the medical system to basically rape and pillage when you're going through these medical bankruptcies. So anyway, sorry, I'm still debugging. I'm going through the stuff that works while I'm debugging. All right, good, we're back. So I'm happy to see that. So now here's another myth. So when you're talking to people about this, ask people what they think about the quality of healthcare in the U.S. and just see what you get back. See how many say, well, the U.S. has the best healthcare in the world. This is objectively not true. The U.S. is actually ranked 37th. We haven't been first in the entire time I've been involved in healthcare. We've never been. I mean, maybe there was a time we were first. I guess maybe after World War II or something. But these healthcare rankings have been horrendous. I mean, they were bad in 2000. They were bad in the 90s. So I want to remind people of how much propaganda we're fed in the United States from the media, from politicians, and from these corporate interests, because our healthcare is not great at all. Just to give you some snapshot examples here, here's the surgical site infection rates. So at this facility, Bumrungrad International in Thailand, which is one of the best facilities out there, surgical infection rate is 0.5%. U.S. hospital average is 1.9%, and some have as high as 4.2% surgical site infection rates. So you can go through this, and we will. And as you'll see, we have information on a lot of different procedures that you can compare and contrast this. And we're going to continue to add more and more and more data. So we're putting more data into this system every day. So here's a guide to the treatment centers, to the treatments themselves. So we kind of give you a breakdown. And what you find with this, it's not surprising. Different countries specialize in different things. And so, once you're armed with that, so for instance, and by the way, a lot of this stuff shocked me when in doing the research for this. I was stunned by not only the size of the market, but just where some of this is emerging. And there are new countries coming on all of the time that have realized that, hey, this is a great niche that we can carve out. So something like dental, where a full mouth restoration in the US costs $60,000, you can go down to Molar City in Mexico and pay $8,000 to $12,000. It's 9,000 to 13,000 in Hungary, 10 to 15,000 in Costa Rica. So, I mean, if you think about that, so a lot of people, they say, well, I can't afford to go there because of the travel. Well, I mean, if it's $48,000 less expensive, how much does it cost to go to Mexico? I want to put that in perspective. The ripoff rate of what you're actually charged here is, I mean, yeah, you could take a private jet and still end up ahead. This is how dramatically different the prices are in these different destinations. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but just I'm going to show you just, you know, some example. I mean, we go through in the guide all kinds of different procedures. I mean, this is dental and cosmetic. We go into dental and cosmetic related to dental, general cosmetic surgery, cardiac surgery, orthopedic surgery, fertility, and IVF. And we're going to continue to add more guides. So you're going to be able to drill down and get more and more details so that you can very quickly figure out, you know, which countries you should look at. And obviously I'll show you the tools that we have to help you even further to navigate all of this. But, you know, something like heart bypass surgery, where it's $123,000 in the United States. I said in the earlier part of the presentation, you go to India and have a 98.5% success rate, pay $7,900. So, I mean, we're talking about literally the difference between whether you're alive or dead or whether or not you're bankrupt or not. This isn't like, oh, well, hey, I saved 10%. You know, this isn't like a Geico commercial or something. This is life-saving and financially saving differences. Heart valve replacement, you can save 88 to 94%. Angioplasty, 84 to 94%. And so, you know, just the list goes on and on and on. You know, spinal fusion. And so, you know, what's amazing about this is just well, because the truth is, unless you've gone through one of these procedures, you don't know how much it costs, because nobody publishes their pricing. So it's always sticker shock. And so the only people that know how much these procedures cost are people that have gone through it. So again, this is a high level guide. We're going to continue to build upon it and then give you also the complete country intelligence so that you can learn about, which to me, again, was fascinating, to learn about how some of these countries came to be destinations. And it turns out Thailand is the #1 place. It is the medical tourism capital of the world. They see 2.5 million people annually. They do $8.7 billion. They have 64 hospitals there, and you're typically going to see a 60 to 70% savings. So why Thailand? So what happened here? So basically, there was a government mandate since the 1997 Asian financial crisis. I don't know if you remember that whole currency crisis situation that happened in the late 90s. And so this became part of a national strategy to basically lift up the entire country. So it became, you know, their mandate was to become the medical hub of Asia. And so you can get a 30-day visa on arrival from most countries. English is widely spoken in the hospitals. They have 200 plus US board certified surgeons. So I want to stress again, if you're like, well, I don't want to go there because this is somebody that they don't speak the language, they weren't trained, you know, I'm getting like third-rate service. Absolutely none of that is true. And the guides that we put together and the tools that I'll show you, you know, we only put in the facilities, the 518 facilities around the world that are JCI accredited. So we're going to add more, but I want to figure out how we do the measurement and reputation management system for this. So we're going to be adding, you know, I wanted to launch with what is safe, and then we're going to continue to add more and more along the lines. So the top facilities, I mentioned this, Bumrungrad International, 580,000 people per year they see. The best, you know, if you're going to Thailand, you're going to go there for cardiac, dental, executive health screenings, gender reassignment, which is probably not too surprising, and then IVF, where they have a higher success rate than most places. And, you know, again, this, you realize if you've been into a hospital, it's everything that they do. It's like they didn't think about whether it's going to improve your health. You go into these hospitals, it's nothing but blue light. They serve you like orange juice and they give you sugar and carbs. The food in hospitals, it's not just that it sucks in terms of quality. It's that it's actually not healthy. It's not like it's a situation where it's, oh, I'm going to go to the hospital and they're going to give me, fresh fruits and, grass-fed, whatever. It's not. The food is really low quality sugar, which of course they'll also charge you an arm and a leg for. I remember my dad passed away in 2012, and he was in the hospital, in and out of the hospital for a few weeks. And I remember the hospital that we were at, it was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They had a McDonald's, and I believe they had a Dunkin' Donuts in the actual hospital. So, which by the way was probably more nutrient dense food than he was getting from the actual hospital itself. But I mean, think about the idea that there's a McDonald's inside of a hospital. Like we have completely lost the plot. So anyway, Thailand is number one, but then we have other emerging destinations. Colombia is on the rise for cosmetic surgery. Malaysia, you have Singapore, which is considered to be the Mayo Clinic of Asia, and Poland is on the rise as well, with generally regarded as having EU quality at 50% savings. We also provide here planning tools, and these planning tools are going to become more sophisticated and easier to interact with over time. But explaining to you, because a lot of people have fear, fear of, well, hey, I'm sick or I need a major medical procedure and now I'm traveling abroad, and all the anxiety that might bring up. And so we have guides here and toolkits to help you with that in terms of what you need regarding passports, medical records, current medication lists, insurance cards, even if not covered, powers of attorney, recent imaging, blood work, and so forth. And we go through the details of when to get a medical visa versus when just getting a tourist visa is sufficient, and what the breakdown is there by country as well. So again, these tools are going to become much more sophisticated and customized. You'll be able to have kind of your own profile and so forth moving on. The other thing is there's such a thing as medical tourism insurance. And one thing that I found in researching this is that it's gotten so bad that a lot of Fortune 500 companies have started to cover medical tourism. So, the costs here are so bad. And again, from a corporation perspective, my healthcare company sold to corporations. And again, because we were trying to address one of their major pain points, which is the fact that next to salaries, healthcare costs are the number 2 cost driver. So a lot of companies now are offering insurance to send their employees overseas for these kinds of treatment. But you can also buy other kinds of insurance for medical tourism. You can get something called MedJet Assist, which is medical evacuation to your home hospital. That's $399 a year. And again, I'm going to put together more vendors and do a more comprehensive analysis of this. There's something called 7 Corners, which will help with complications from planned procedures. Something called Global Protective Solutions, which provides surgery-specific complications, and then Allianz Travel, which provides emergency medical and evacuation. So understand that there really are options here. And as I was saying before, a lot of self-funded plans. So if you're not familiar with self-funded, most large corporations are self-funded, meaning they actually are financially on the hook for their own medical claims. So you may work for a Fortune 500 company and you have Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare, but the role that Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare is playing is an administrative one only. So because they're set up to actually handle billing, if you want to call it that, they're handling the administration of the care, but the actual financial liability is being borne by the employer. So a lot of these self-funded plans, 8% now, the Fortune 500 offer medical tourism. Walmart, Lowe's, Pepsi cover this. HSA, FSA. Some of these are HSA, FSA eligible. So again, there's a lot of really interesting information to dig in here. And then we have kind of a recovery timeline by procedure. And so all of this information, the longer that we're doing this, we're going to have very granular information on every procedure that you can imagine, and then we're going to have all of what you can expect in terms of the stay duration and how long until you're recovered enough to be safe to fly, when you're going to be able to return to work. We're going to have all of that information broken down. For right now, we just have kind of some of the high level for dental, cosmetic, and other procedures. We also give you a checklist of questions to ask the facilities. I'll show you how the site works and how you can sort through the facilities. But if I could say one thing about what we're trying to do here is that the whole point of everything that we're doing, daylight and all of the stuff that we're working on is this, that you are responsible for your own health. And the whole point is to empower you, but you still have to do the work. Our goal is to provide tools to connect you to the information, but you are still in the driver's seat. And that may sound like, well, yeah, of course, but that's literally not how our healthcare system works right now at all. We have very little agency. We have very little say in our healthcare. Most people have healthcare through their employer because of the way that it's structured legally. And then depending upon the insurance plan that you have, the doctors that you can pick from are already pre-decided by the health plan selected by your employer. Are you in an HMO? Are you in a PPO? What kind of setup? That determines what's even available to you. And again, you're not allowed to know the costs in advance. So right now, we have this very much paternalistic situation where we're treated as lowly patients who are kind of subject to whatever decisions the government and our employer has made for us. This flips that on its head. And by the way, I will say from a mental perspective, you should look at this as you are a consumer. You're spending your money. So instead of this kind of arrogant approach that we have from the medical community, where, trust the science, the doctor knows best, it's now shop around. Find out what the pricing is. Ask all of these questions. We're going to provide data and use these tools to crowdsource more information as well. But if you're going to go in there, even though you've done the research, ask them ask the doctor how many of this particular procedure have you performed? What's your success rate? What's your infection rate? Who's your specific surgeon? And by the way, the beauty of this system, when you look into these things, they actually have this data. They publish this data. Our system is loath to actually provide healthcare outcome data. I mentioned that I went to this thing called the World Healthcare Congress, and I think 2004, 2005, they had a panel discussion, and the doctor was on there saying, well, we don't even think that we should have these websites where the patient can review the doctor because the patient isn't qualified to review the doctor. If I'm a doctor providing a complex procedure, whereas some other doctor that's in a related category is providing something that's very simple and has a high success rate, they're going to come up with the wrong idea and they're going to get the wrong information. This is literally how medical professionals think about this. They really don't think. Obviously, I don't need to go through talk about what happened with COVID. Nobody should trust the medical community based on that alone. But ask questions and shop around and understand that in these countries, Thailand and these other countries that we're talking about here, they actually provide more transparency about outcomes than you'll get here. I remember in New Hampshire, one of the hospitals here was in a lawsuit. I don't even know what ended up happening with it. The Boston Globe had done one of these spotlight things where I guess there was a heart surgeon that had a terrible record and had whether it was a high injury rate or death rate or whatever, and it was covered up for years and years and years. And then the minute it was exposed, everybody lawyered up. And I'll actually have to look this up afterwards. My guess is we probably never got the information from that. The hospitals, when you work with hospitals, they immediately go into damage control. They have scripts that they use, ways that they handle the press. They shut down giving up any of the information. And all of it is, they even use things like HIPAA. All of these things are designed to protect the financial interests of the hospitals and the doctors. None of it is about providing us with actionable information that we can use to improve our health. This is why when I say we don't have a market, we literally do not have a market in healthcare. It's shameful. So anyway, we have JCI-accredited. JCI is Joint Commission International, so it's the same organization that accredits Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and Cleveland Clinic. And we're going to look around at other accreditation as well. So we have 518 so far on the site out of 1,082 are in the database, and there's certain reasons we didn't add some of them, but we're going to continue to build out and make sure that we have all of these, and then we're going to look into adding other facilities as well. And again, you will get from this industry performance and other information comparing costs. And again, once we get a lot of people using this, our own data will become very important for helping to provide real insight and real information for other people as well. I think combining all this and putting this in one place, empowering people. The whole point is that, again, we are responsible for our own health. Whether we use any of these things is up to us. And it's up to us to provide transparency and to hold the entire marketplace accountable. And that's lacking. There's no financial incentive for anybody to I can imagine, if you try. I remember this, there was this guy, I think his name was Jim Clark. He was the chairman of, I want to say Sun Microsystems or CGI or something like that. And he had this bad medical experience in Silicon Valley. It's like, I can't believe how this works. He documented a lot of the things we've been talking about. How the care is not coordinated, how the billing isn't transparent. And he started something called Healthion. He's like, we're going to completely transform the healthcare system. Well, long story short, that ended up morphing into WebMD, which has got to be one of the least useful websites on the planet in terms of actually providing real information. And I actually talked to somebody that was the CEO of another company that was trying to build a healthcare related company. And in the end, they were trying to build a community site, but their only source of revenue was selling to big pharma. It's almost impossible to come up with a business model here. And then when you do provide a website where people can provide reviews, you end up getting sued for defamation because these guys, these hospitals and all these medical facilities and insurance companies, they spend an outrageous amount of money on lawyers and will use defamation and everything else to silence. And again, I'm hoping that what we do is we build a library of all of this. I want people to see the horrors of this because I think most people have had horrible experiences and most people think that they're alone. And I think that we could really shine light on all of this. And so the other destinations, you have Thailand, following right behind Thailand is Mexico, then India, Turkey, Costa Rica, South Korea, and then Costa Rica. So these are your big destinations. But again, depending upon the procedure, there are other places, and there are certainly emerging facilities. So this is the kind of the intro guide on this front. Then there are the facilities themselves. So I'm glad we have this up and working. So we have in here 518 facilities, 39 countries. And I'll get to this concept of pledges, which I think is going to be somewhat important. But you can come in here and you can use a simple search for, all right, I'm interested in dental implants. And then those will be sorted over here. And you can actually sort by highest rated, most reviews, name, country, and you can really then drill back in. You can actually see, review information. You can see where it is on the map. And then there's the ability to reach out to these facilities. So understand most of these facilities that we're talking about for medical tourism, even though they're in other countries, they speak English, so that you're not going to have an issue of like, I'm contacting a facility in Thailand, now I need to consult somebody that knows how to speak the language. That's not the case. So you can go to the website directly. You can call them. We've integrated WhatsApp, which is, which you can click on, which is important if you don't want to pay international calls. I mean, I'm not a fan of WhatsApp itself, but nevertheless, we want to reduce the friction and make it as easy as possible. The other thing is you can send an email directly from the site. Of course, this probably won't work right now. It does work. It did work earlier, but what this does is it'll send an email to the facility directly. So we have all the email addresses in here, and it will allow you to specify the procedure you're looking for. And then it has a link and a description in the email that explains why both parties, why the consumer and why the medical facility should consider using Zano and Freedom Dollar. And I'll get to that part of this in a second. So, and again, bear with me. There will be bugs, and so part of this is to get your input on this. So you can sort by a lot of ways. You can sort. You can either sort through search. You can sort by clicking specialty. You can sort by country. The other thing that I added was I actually added an AI chatbot in here to make it as easy as possible. So we're going to continue to build on this. I want this to be really easy. So, you know, where can I get affordable dental implants? And then boom, it's going to search the entire database that we have and will give you a response to this. And so this is for all aspects of the site, not only about the procedures, but even about medical trusts and everything else, which I'll get to. So there's a lot more information here that I haven't gotten to yet. So, but if you picked in, you know, all right, dental implants, this will give you, you know, a top list, and then the phone number and the contact information right there. And again, all of this is pulling from our own database. So this is an AI chatbot, but that's built on the information that we have built in our system. So that's there. I've added this. This will grow, and you know, right now I just put in YouTube videos, but I really want to make this powerful and interactive, and I want people to be able to share their stories. In fact, I'll play this. Actually, can you hear that? Let me know if you can hear this video. Actually, what I might do is, so I'm using a different browser. I've found when I'm doing these podcasts, if I use a different browser than StreamYard, the audio doesn't work. So I'm going to switch out which, oh, hold on a second. All right, sorry about that. I'm going to switch out. I'm going to remove this. And I'm going to add, let's see here, I'm going to add a tab in this browser to make sure you can hear the actual video. So let me see here. Screen, share screen. There we go. All right, now you should be able to hear the video, but this is a perfect tip.
This morning, a young Kentucky man says his life is on hold because a heart condition left him with massive debt despite having health insurance. We're looking at his case in our continuing Bill of the Month partnership with Kaiser Health News and NPR, examining unexpected medical costs. The now 31-year-old is dealing with big bills and bankruptcy just to be able to live a normal life after years of medical care.
I just stopped going to the movies. I stopped going to basketball games.
Matthew Fentress was just 25 years old when he was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, a condition that makes it harder for the heart to pump blood throughout the body. 3 years ago, doctors inserted a pacemaker and defibrillator in Fentress to save his life. Fentress had insurance, but when he couldn't afford his $5,000 hospital bill, he declared bankruptcy. Then this January, his cardiologist suggested Fentress undergo a cardiac ablation procedure to restore normal heart rhythm and offer him a better quality of life.
It's not really living if all I do is sit around the house and not be able to enjoy anything I used to do.
The bill for that better life? $258,000. His insurance negotiated the bill down and paid more than $26,000. But due to his high deductible plan, Fentress was on the hook for close to $8,000.
And you get so many bills that it's almost like they pile up on you.
Fentress has yet to pay any of the bill and is filing paperwork to negotiate the amount with his hospital. But until then, he says his life is on hold.
Can't get a credit card. I can't buy a house. I don't see me ever being out of debt.
United Healthcare says it's worked with Baptist Health Louisville for many years to help reduce healthcare costs. It says Matthew Fentress's procedure was covered correctly under his plan, which has a maximum out-of-pocket limit of $7,900 a year. Baptist Health Louisville says it gave Fentress an estimate of $7,888 before the procedure. It also says he has not applied for financial assistance, but is likely eligible, and they're prepared to expedite the process. We're joined now by Dr. Elizabeth Rosenthal, editor-in-chief at Kaiser Health News. Elizabeth, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
I want to see thousands and thousands of these kinds of videos. I mean, I put up a few for now, but I want people to be able to share their stories. Even since doing the original medical tourism podcast and doing the preview of OSARA that I did a month or so ago, I've had people reaching out to me with their own individual situations, whether it's a friend or a loved one who, has to wait 45 days. They have a serious medical condition and they can't even see a doctor for 45 days. I mean, and now just because, we're involved in doing this, every time we go somewhere, every time we talk to someone, the topic of healthcare comes up, which of course it has come up because of everything that's going on now with Obamacare and the government shutdown. And I have yet to meet a person that does not have a story that could be shared in this system. So, I mean, if we had a database of thousands of these stories and we made that easy for people to see, that would put, a lot of pressure. And again, I don't have any hope that they're going to fix the existing situation. But if we just show people how just blatantly horrendous the system is, hopefully it'll get people to move and start using other alternatives. Again, you can't fix a system that at its core is broken. And it's broken at the level of, I did another podcast, not the one on medical tourism, but just about the structure and incentives of modern medicine. The American Medical Association was started as basically a union for doctors to reduce the supply of doctors, to increase the prices. It was also designed to kill homeopathy, and they used brutal tactics to do this. The way that the insurance works, as you saw, because of Obamacare, insurance companies get 20% of the amount charged. So the incentive is actually for the price to increase. Nobody has an incentive based on outcomes. Why I'm so passionate about this is I created a company in the healthcare space that offered rewards for people to lose and maintain weight. It was based on healthcare outcomes. And so we structured the incentives such that everybody won. The employees lost weight and earned rewards. The employer saw a net ROI based on both a reduction in insurance costs and improvement in productivity, and we created a profitable business. This is very simple. Like, this was not rocket science, and it actually worked. And people found it appalling. Doctors found it appalling. Oh my God, you're rewarding people based on their actual health status, whether they actually improve their health. We can't do that. We have to only base incentives on activity, not achievement. So we can reward somebody for going to a gym, or actually for signing up for a gym, but you can't reward them for actually losing weight. And literally, they've developed their whole little system of bioethicists and everything else to participation trophy everything, where you can't. So our business was ruined by Obamacare because you could no longer use insurance dollars, which are pre-tax, to pay out the rewards, because it went over a allocated arbitrary amount that they set up. So my choice was restructure my business so that we could become part of the problem and be just another service that adds cost and doesn't improve outcomes, or I opted out to not continue forward. But I have witnessed this, and I've seen this firsthand. We had clients in 43 states. We had Fortune 500 clients. I have met with large and small corporations all over the United States. I've met with hospitals. I've met with all the insurance companies. When I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking about this not only from the data that we've collected, but from direct firsthand experience. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You couldn't design a worse system. If you started from scratch, no one would possibly come up with what we have. It is the worst of all in terms of incentives, lack of transparency, lack of accountability. And so I've been playing around with things, if 25% of people that have type 2 diabetes all of a sudden were cured, which by the way, they probably could by doing a prolonged fast. I'm not even kidding about that. It would bankrupt our healthcare system. When you look at the fixed costs of the hospitals and the facilities and everything else, they literally can't have people get healthy, because in order for most hospitals to be financially solvent, they actually have to hit certain capacity numbers. So literally our healthcare system has no incentive. There is zero incentive for anyone in the system to improve anyone's health. And my view on that is, I don't want anything to do with this. My body, it's my health. I don't care about your system. I don't care about whether or not you have to keep the capacity at 95% in order to be solvent. What does that have to do with anything? This is like Klaus Schwab talking about stakeholder capitalism. This is the same thing. The only thing that matters it is my health. And whether I'm using a doctor, using insurance, using healthcare, that's irrelevant. Whatever the best way is for me to improve my health, if that's using herbs, if that's using natural supplements, if that's buying peptides from overseas, if that's using AI, if that's through food and nutrition and exercise, whatever, fine. I'm not here. My health doesn't exist to keep jobs open and available for doctors and for nurses and for bureaucrats. But that is the way the system is structured. So I want this to be a movement. I mean, I put these pledges and things up here, which I'll get to, but I mean, I want to set some goals here to get people out of the system in mass numbers, because if not, all of this is going to get worse. We're going to go from 1 bankruptcy a minute to 2 bankruptcies a minute, and no one is getting healthier. Life expectancy isn't getting better, and nothing that the administration is doing is moving in the right direction. In fact, everything that Maha is doing is increasing the role of government in healthcare. There will be no improvement. America will not be healthy again. Healthcare will be rationed more. Technocrats' control will increase. And honestly, I don't give a shit what RFK says about health. He has no bearing on any decision I make at all. And if he were really about medical freedom, then I wouldn't have to care about what RFK Jr. thinks. And I don't anyway. But anyway, so you can sort these facilities all these different ways. You can use the chat bot. You can reach out to them and contact them. And again, so for me, what does this have to do? Keep in mind, we don't have a revenue model for this. I'm not interested in getting into the business of collecting transaction fees or getting into the middle of any of this. I don't want something that can get shut down. I want to put something here that is censorship resistant, that's available, that provides open transparency. Every time you get into the healthcare space, because I've been in the space where, you're getting a cut, or you're doing this, you're doing that, then you become subject to a whole set of different rules. So this is just free information. And so there's nothing to go after. So this is truly about empowering people. Now, let me say something else about this. So one of the things that drives me on this is, so of course, obviously I'm a big fan of, related to some of the most important things that we can do to stop getting steamrolled by the technocrats is to stop using their money. That's number one. If you stop using their money, then they lose their control system. This is why when people say, oh, well, let's do cash Fridays. If you're using cash, you're still using their money. You're still using debt-based currency. And so that's not going to stop their reign of terror. This is why I'm like, okay, get out of the system, use privacy coins. That will weaken them. And then stop being dependent on their healthcare system. Those are the two big ones. There are others, food, energy, and some things that, if I don't build those, then, I'll help invest in and support and advise if they want my help. Others, but these are the big things. Now, why is Zano and Freedom Dollar so important to this? Okay, well, let's look at medical tourism. So now we have an issue with medical tourism. Again, it's a $100 billion a year industry, but how are you going to pay for this? If you're paying for $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, well, guess what? These facilities don't necessarily want to or don't take credit cards. Why? Because you have all kinds of issues with chargebacks based on the rules of the credit card agreement. So you go over, somewhere. So think about it from the perspective of the provider. I've just provided an $8,000 service in Thailand, and then somebody files a dispute on their credit card, and now that's an issue. On top of that, there are credit card processing fees. So not that that's necessarily going to be a game changer, but if you're paying 3.25% or 3.29% plus 30 cents plus you have these chargebacks, that's actually an issue. Well, then we have other issues. Internet doing business overseas. This has been one of the reasons one of many reasons crypto has been as popular as it is doing cross-border transactions is really difficult. Trying to communicate with and send money to another bank is very costly, very time-consuming, and actually can be somewhat risky. And of course, as I've outlined in my book and in numerous other presentations and articles, our money is already digital and they can already shut it off. Your bank, the bank can cut you off at any time for any reason. They can cancel your account without cause. They can flag your account based on hitting any kind of rule. If you do a transaction more than $10,000, it's automatically flagged and goes to the Treasury Department. There are already all of these things in place that actually make it difficult for you to wire money or to do anything like that with. So obviously this is something that is already a problem in the medical tourism space. It will only get worse. The amount of surveillance and control has only increased. It's been a straight line since 1970. If you're using PayPal has been a less than optimal experience for medical tourism. PayPal will hold funds for 21 days. They'll charge 4 to 5% fees. They have banned medical providers without warning or recourse. Do you remember, was it like a year? I can't even remember now, 2 years, 3 years ago, where they were going to start, they put in some clause about shutting people's accounts down based on social media profiles. PayPal is bullshit. You don't want to use PayPal. They already censor your money. Again, it's another middleware layer on top of fiat. So this is the problem for you. So the last thing you need, if you're going to get a potentially life-saving or very important medical treatment, is to have to spend time going through customer service, having your funds frozen with PayPal, or deal with issues with the credit card, or deal with issues with the bank. It's bad news. The other thing is, every transaction on the credit card is reported, and insurance companies can very easily track your medical spending. And again, this system, I'll believe me, I'm not done talking about this. I'm going to be talking about these issues constantly from this point moving forward. But the funny thing is, we have this HIPAA Act, and there's some people that naively believe that HIPAA is there to protect your privacy of your healthcare information. It's not. Your insurance companies are covered entities. They get to see the information. The government can see the information. They can use public health. They can use 4 or 5 different criteria to get access to all of our data. HIPAA protects the status quo. HIPAA protects the government. The people you don't want your information getting to on your health already get the information. What it does is it makes it difficult and adds friction for you to get access to your own information and use it to empower yourself. I will do at some point an entire episode on HIPAA. I went through this with lawyers when I was trying to, again, we had an incentive-based weight management program. So now if I had nurses, and we would weigh people every quarter. Well, if I used a nurse or a medical professional, then I had to have a whole new set of forms that added a whole bunch of different costs. I ended up using health coaches instead because it managed to be somewhat of a carve out of having to do all of this stuff. The system is completely broken. So of course, insurance companies will use whatever information that they can to deny you. And this is a real deal. I've stated this. United Healthcare is being sued right now because it is alleged in the court documents that they are rejecting 90% of claims for people that have Medicare Advantage, and that the claims processing now, because they're using AI, is 0.2 seconds. So it takes them 0.2 seconds to adjudicate a claim, and at 90% of the time it comes back as denied. Then if you appeal, who do you appeal to? You appeal to the AI. Well, so now all of this is in place. Medicare and Medicaid are moving to this system. So we have this situation where in reality, you want to do whatever you can. Well, first of all, what I'm proposing is don't use any of those systems and don't have to worry about it. But understand that if you're using insurance, using a credit card or using these other things, now that Palantir is involved and connected to hospitals, by the way, look into that. They're going to use that information to try to get out of, you know, whatever they can in terms of if you're still using insurance. You have international wire fees if you're doing wires. And again, you have government reporting on international transfers of over $10,000. Why is the government involved? Why does the government have to know? What right do they have to know if I'm doing a transaction of greater than $10,000? What business of it, of this is theirs? I mean, it's the fact that we put up with this, and I've said this, $10,000 is by default. Anybody that does anything more than $10,000, it's reported. 6 months ago, the Treasury Department decided they wanted to crack down on illegal immigration in California and Texas. They issued a memo that says in these 30 zip codes, anything more than $200 gets flagged and automatically sent to the Treasury Department. So if I haven't made this clear yet over all of these podcasts, our money, fiat currency, is already digital. It's already tracked. There are 13 different programs. You have no rights. You can read your banking agreement. They can cancel your account. And of course, if you're engaging in medical tourism, that's going to be a flag. So, you know, so anyway, this is why I believe medical tourism is one of the best possible applications for Zano. I mean, outside of, you know, Freedom Dollar itself, this is a payment mechanism that can be sent cross-border. And if you're using Freedom Dollars makes this a no-brainer, right? I mean, you could argue about Zano. You know, the price may fluctuate a lot, and that may be somewhat of a downer for the medical facilities. May be more interested in stability. You know, again, the fact that things are stable is pegged to the dollar. It is what it is. That may change over time, but it's not going to change in the next 12 months, maybe the next 24 months. So the ability to use Freedom Dollar is something where, okay, both sides understand what the price is. By the way, one of the other things I didn't mention is here is you have currency conversion issues. That's another layer and another problem on top of all of these other logistical problems. So now if you're using Freedom Dollar, it's completely private. The insurance company is not going to know. The government is not going to know. No one is going to know. The transaction is completely between you and the medical tourism destination. Interestingly enough, with the destinations that I've reviewed so far, and again, you have to do your research on a case-by-case basis, they actually keep your data private, or they don't even hold your data at all. This is, because you are dealing outside of the United States, you are not subject to all of HIPAA and all of the other information and laws that we have here that protect and give access to the medical system and the government, your data. So you actually have more privacy, and now this adds financial privacy to it. For the provider, there are no chargebacks. I mean, you know, it's you pay somebody. There's no reversible transaction here. It's instant settlement. You know, this is the other thing, and again, I don't necessarily think people care that much about the details, but when you're doing banking internationally, there are all kinds of time delays depending upon the country and whatever you're going through. With credit cards, there are delays. And because it's an international transaction, you know, whereas it may be like a 72-hour settlement or something if you're doing it in the United States, it's greater if you're doing an international transaction. And so they may actually they may fund, you know, if you use a credit card for $10,000, they may actually spread out when the provider actually gets paid over a longer time scale. The transaction fees are under 1 cent. It's censorship resistant. And again, if you're using Freedom Dollar, you get the stability of the dollar, you know, such as it is. But again, when you're dealing with medical tourism, in the way that this market is structured, it's a lot of, you know, US is the market for this, not solely the US, but Freedom Dollar is a terrific solution because they want to get paid in something that's priced in dollars. And now they can do it without any fees, any chargebacks, or any of this. So I actually think this is a home run situation. Now, I decided that I wanted to build the site like this rather than go and try to sign up medical facilities all over the world and sell them one by one on Zano and Freedom Dollar, which would be expensive and time consuming. I'm like, you know what? I want you to use Zano. I want you to use Freedom Dollar, but it's not a requirement. So let's build the best possible site, the easiest site with the most information and the most empowered community. And then when you reach out to these facilities, again, as I mentioned, when you use the email or whatever, an email goes out and it includes a little sentence or paragraph that says why you should consider using Zano and why you should consider using Freedom Dollar. And then the medical provider can then click on a link and that takes them to the Why Zano page, and that has down here getting started guides and everything else. I'm going to make this material a lot easier. There's going to be a step-by-step walkthrough for onboarding providers, but I wanted to at least get this up and running as we're going through this, development stage right now. But I mean, again, this isn't rocket science. Get Zano or Freedom Dollar, which, we have other videos for you as the patient, or I should say consumer. I don't even want to use the patient word. We'll have guides as well, just as we do through freedomforge.io. But here's how you can go about getting Zano or Freedom Dollar, find your provider, pay securely, your privacy is intact. I mean, it's actually less complicated. If I said to you right now, go wire money to Thailand, most people wouldn't know how to do this. Most people have never done wires at all, I've found. And the complexity of doing international wires is really annoying. Figuring out how to get Zano or Freedom Dollar is really not that hard. I mean, I know some people will say, well, yeah, it was a little bit complicated. I guarantee you it is easier than doing an international wire, and it's easier than trying to use PayPal or use a credit card. It is definitively a better, faster, cheaper solution. So I'm going to work on, making the onboarding even easier, because I know some people still expressed some difficulty in how to do that. But I mean, again, it's really easy to do. You can buy it directly, but again, I recommend, frankly, if you're going to use an exchange or something, just swap another coin, swap a stable coin for Freedom Dollar using something like XLX, and I'll provide all of that material in depth as well. But this really, I think Freedom Dollar has the ability to reduce the friction globally for medical tourism. I think this is a big win for everybody involved. Now, there's another aspect to this that I didn't mention, which is, I'm going to have to, this is the problem with developing this stuff up to the last minute. Trust. So I'm going to, while this is going in the back, I'm going to have this add. There's a map here. So we're going to talk about medical trusts. In fact, before I do that, I want to talk about kind of the concept here, which is I want to build a movement around this. So I've called this the Take Action Center. And we've created 3 different pledges. So again, this is all about taking real action in 2026 or now. But I mean, the official launch of this is 1/1/96, to do 3 things. 1, create a medical trust. 2, cancel insurance by next open enrollment. And 3, pledge to try medical tourism. Because let me tell you, so these are the big things. You probably noticed this, and we've had people on this show. You do open enrollment in November. Again, what kind of product do you only get the opportunity to enroll in it and pick what you're buying one time a year, right? I mean, great system. And even then, because of a government shutdown, that was derailed, right? What a horrible system. But I'm very serious about this. We don't have health insurance deliberately. We did. I mean, my wife had one. We had the whole high deductible health plan with an HSA and all this other stuff, which is just an absolute scam. You end up paying premiums that you don't even use. Then you end up having these deductibles, and then you have an HSA, which, as I've said before, is kind of a combination between a, social credit system and a CBDC, because you get to put a percentage of your own money as determined by the IRS in an account that you can only use and spend on a certain type of products and services through various, pharmacies or whatever it happens to be. This is not like a lot of people, oh yeah, I have an HSA, great. So you're already on board with social credit. You're already on board with programmable digital currency. And so, so we've completely canceled insurance. And so a lot of people, what they say is, oh, well, I need, what if there's a catastrophic event, right? Remember, 75% of the medical bankruptcies happen from people who are insured, and 77% are homeowners. The insurance isn't actually even a safety net for catastrophic events. Why? Because as I showed you what they charge, you end up having a situation. Somebody told me that they had some basic procedure. Oh yeah, well, I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody close to us had to go into the emergency room for a pretty minor situation and ended up getting a $32,000 bill for it. Now, the insurance company paid for most of it, but they still, what they even had to pay out of pocket, a couple $1,000s, is 10 times more than the actual thing cost, right? So insurance doesn't actually protect you on a catastrophic basis. But what I'm proposing the reason that I have these 3 pledges here is, the first is create a medical trust. So one of the ways to prevent bankruptcy, or I should say, it doesn't necessarily prevent bankruptcy, but it protects your assets if you do have bankruptcy, if you do have to go through bankruptcy. And so, so this is a legal document that you can prepare to shield your assets from these medical bills. And what I am loading now, hold on, I need. So what I'm about to show you is an entire interface that has all of the laws for medical trusts in all 50 states with explanations of how all of it works, along with places where you can go, online services that you can use to get these medical trusts. So again, this is, I get angered. I actually get very angry because there's a lot of people in the middle class that are like, and I've talked to these people, I mean, they're working themselves paycheck to paycheck at a job they don't like to keep this insurance that they think is going to protect them from ruin, and it won't even do that. So we have literally a situation where I'll play it later, that video, the latest song, the first music video that I created with this, and people really are living lives of quiet desperation, and this healthcare system is a big part of it. Because of the way healthcare is structured in this country, people have jobs that they don't like just for this insurance, and the insurance doesn't protect them from catastrophic events. And so they go to these jobs they don't like for the insurance, and then presumably to save for retirement, assuming they don't get completely fleeced through healthcare costs. Well, what is the retirement? Well, it's in these financial instruments that BlackRock votes control of, that you don't have, that in a financial collapse you don't even own economically, but are largely in companies that are building your digital prison. This is the status of most Americans. It may not be you. I mean, if you're listening to this, I mean, chances are you're different, but it is the majority of Americans that are living that existence. So if you create a medical trust, now you're like, okay, the idea is you don't care if you go through bankruptcy. In other words, you still keep your assets. Yes, it means you won't have a good credit score for a while and everything else, but that's not entirely what people are worried about. What most people are worried about is, am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose my car? Am I going to lose my investments? Well, if you can protect those things, then why are you paying into this insurance scam? So this whole site is about trying to provide a comprehensive solution. So first, protect your assets, then cancel your insurance, and then start engaging in medical tourism. And at the end of all of this, you can actually now take a step back and say, do I even like my job? Like, I want people to really question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. If you don't like your job, and then you're looking at AI potentially being a big issue, this is a good opportunity to figure out what your true purpose is and to invest in going in that direction. And I think untethering people from this healthcare system and untethering people from fiat currency is going to liberate people and allow people to find their true purpose. It makes me I'm very saddened when I see people that I know they're not living their best lives. They're living somebody else's life. They're living a life that has been dictated by bureaucrats and by crony corporations because of this scheme. this insurance thing, this healthcare system is $4 trillion a year. This is one of the biggest anchors on, you know, the human soul in this country. And so I really do think now, when we're talking about medical tourism and everything else, this is only the beginning of what we're going to create. This is just a substitute for using health insurance. But you want to not have to even use these medical facilities to begin with. You want to be empowered to take control of your own health. Once you realize the nutrition guidance you've been given, everything from sunscreen and everything else, I mean, they've been poisoning us through a whole variety of ways. When you actually track the money and the cycle on this, it's a pretty evil, dastardly situation. So we're going to create tools. I think I started to show this maybe on one podcast. I've built a system where I have my own genetic information, all of the raw data of my genome. And I match that up. So I actually have a report that shows, all right, you know, what is my likelihood of various diseases? So I have my kind of risk factors. And then I have an AI that uses Mike Adams AI and a whole bunch of other resources. I've downloaded, all of the content from a bunch of medical people that I do value. I have all of their data in a database that I can call, and I can match my particular risk factors with not what a doctor who's part of the system is going to say. I get a variety of different views. I get, what does homeopathy say about this? What does, what's the latest information on peptides? What does Dr. Jack Cruz say about this health condition in mitochondrial health? What does Dr. Berg say with respect to this risk factor about using a ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting, right? I'm in control. I've got the data, and then I'm picking which virtual doctor I want to use, which virtual AI I want to use. And I'm not meeting with a doctor. I'm not giving anybody any information at all, but I'm completely empowered. I can look at supplements, peptides, whatever I want to look at. And I can experiment however I want. It's my body. And, again, I want to take what I'm creating there, and I want to make that available to other people so that you can use your own data that you have, not sharing your data with me, that you have on your own computer, and you can access these kinds of systems. That is the next layer of where this is going. Then the third layer after that is allowing people, creating a community where people can interact with each other. You have to understand the way this is all broken down, that trust the doctors, trust the science, standard of care, gold-plated, whatever the hell, gold standard science. All gold standard science is protecting the status quo. The reality is 70 to 80% of healthcare costs could be avoided in this country through prevention. That was one of the things when we were trying to tackle obesity with incentives. It was the single biggest driver of healthcare costs, and it's something that is directly addressable. And it's directly addressable by people changing their behavior. It doesn't require a pharmaceutical intervention 99% of the time. Well, it turns out, I guess I was surprised at the time. Not really, I wasn't naive at the time, but people don't want to solve these problems. People have predictable business models based on people continuing to be unhealthy at about the same present rate, or maybe a little bit higher over time. So being able to connect people, if you have a particular condition, if I have a risk factor for a particular disease, I'd like to talk to other people and be able to communicate with them about what they've learned on their own, doing their own experimentation, their own testing. I don't need an FDA approval process that's designed to sell me a drug that's going to exacerbate my condition and make me sick for the rest of my life. The truth of the matter is we don't have solutions for almost anything. I mean, it is actually a true statement that Pfizer has never cured a single person of anything. And so we have built these structures where we depend on these authority figures, and we've actually given them authority over our information and over determining what standards are. Well, I would like to figure out how to create tools to open it up, to connect people, to be able to communicate with each other privately and to share their information and share their ideas. Because, again, we haven't figured any of this stuff out. Let's empower people to take control of their own health, and then empower people to interact with one another voluntarily. So that is the long-range vision of OSARA. It's, yes, replace broken hospitals, replace insurance with medical tourism. shield your assets through medical trust, but then let's go into this other thing. Let's get people their agency back. Let's get people to start thinking about how they're in the driver's seat for their own health, not any institution or any other authority. So anyway, that's the story on that. So you can go to the website and sign these pledges now. I'd like to see these turn into really big numbers. I mean, I think again, imagine where this could go if you have thousands and thousands of people sharing their horror stories with the current situation. And then once people become educated about this, once you realize, oh, wait a minute, my health insurance doesn't actually provide me catastrophic coverage. I'm literally just paying, well, I said companies, their second biggest expense is healthcare costs. It's the second biggest expense, or maybe even the largest expense for families. I mean, it's a jump ball between whether you're paying more in interest to bankers who print money out of thin air for your mortgage, or whether you're paying additional fees for insurance coverage you're probably not ever going to use. And if you do need it for a catastrophic condition, it's not going to cover what you need, and you're going to become bankrupt anyway, right? Once people become educated on this, once people share this, and I think these clips can go viral. People telling their own stories is what makes this work. Not, I go through a lot of data or whatever, and I can explain how this stuff works. But the truth is, everywhere I go and everyone I talk to has a very passionate horror story about how they've been screwed over by the healthcare system. Well, you know what? Let's get hundreds of millions of views. Let's get tens of thousands of people sharing those stories. Then simultaneously have them start sharing stories about how you can use medical tourism, how you can take control of your own health and get off of having to take any pharmaceuticals whatsoever. I think this could be big. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I certainly am passionate about it because I don't want to see people living lives of quiet desperation because they're tied and tethered to this stupid healthcare system. The other episode that I did, again, why do you have insurance through the employer? It's because of World War II and the government freezing wages. And so the only way companies could compete for talent was by offering health insurance. That was World War II. We never decided to get rid of this. So now we have a gig economy. You have people that, maybe somebody wants to be a graphic designer and can't be a graphic designer because they have to take some job working at some soulless company so that they can have insurance because somebody wanted to figure out how they could hire better employees during a wage freeze during World War II. That's insane. 80 years ago. I mean, this is just, again, and this also shows you how unfixable the situation is. We have things that are structurally wrong for over 80 years, and nobody even talks about addressing the original sin in this entire situation, right? Why are we, people talk about this all the time. Doctors used to come to your house and do home visits, and you used to be in control of your own health. And then we gave it up to insurance companies, and then we gave it up to the government. Now it's 47% the government. Now we have no agency in our healthcare. We can decide to take our agency back right now. You can sign the pledge, but you can just cancel your insurance. You can do this right now. There is nothing stopping you from doing this. And so I know it's complicated, but I hope as more people share stories, I hope people, get angry, but then feel empowered about the fact that they don't have to be stuck with this stuff. All right, hold on. I'm having I want to get to this medical trust thing, and it's not popping up yet. So I'm going to come back. I'll come back to this. So in a second. So again, this is what we have now, and there's more. I will go through the medical tourism component of this, but there's a bounty program for this. So hold on. Let me see if I can get this to load. I want to show you the bounty program as well. So I'm going to have to make a couple of other adjustments here so that I can show you the rest of the site. But, we're offering $1,000 for people to provide feedback, either bugs or suggested improvements or enhancements or whatever it happens to be. And again, you're not going to offend me. I have been working on this and 6 other projects. So I've been putting a lot of time in it. I haven't been sleeping a lot, but this is not I'm not presenting this as a final product. I'm presenting this as a product that I would love your feedback on, and that between now and January the 1st, we're going to be making hundreds and hundreds of improvements to the site. Now, while this is loading the map, what I will say is that what we put in here is a tool to show you how medical trusts work. So one of the things is, once you start talking about something like a medical trust, people are like, oh my God, it's expensive. I'm going to have to hire a lawyer, and I can't afford a lawyer. And that's a realistic concern, although most people don't bother to go and research it. And it's not necessarily an easy thing to be able to research. And so let's see, this says that it's there. Try again. So anyway, I am going to wait for this to load because I want to walk through how medical trusts work. But before we do that, I want to tell you that I did put this chatbot here so that you can ask questions. And I want you to test the chatbot too, and let me know if it is helpful, because I want to augment it with more and more data. So just keep in mind, everything that you see, there's going to be more data over time. It's going to get smarter over time. But let me just do the chatbot. What is a medical trust? So we'll start there. And by the way, if anybody wants to join the chat or submit questions, either for me or that I can actually type into this so that you can get a flavor for how this works, would love to have people pop on. So a medical trust is a specialized legal structure designed to set aside funds specifically for healthcare expenses. It offers several key benefits: asset protection. It protects funds from creditors, ensuring they're used solely for medical purposes. Tax advantages. Certain states like South Dakota, Nevada, and Delaware offer favorable tax treatment for trusts. Healthcare funding ensures funds are available for future medical needs, including international healthcare. Medical trusts are particularly useful for individuals planning for long-term healthcare expenses, or those who want to fund medical tourism while safeguarding their assets. States like Delaware and Mississippi have strong trust laws that support healthcare planning and asset protection. If you are considering setting up a medical trust, essentially worth an attorney, blah, 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 blah. And then we put some services here, because you can use things like LegalZoom. There are some off-the-shelf. Most of these things are templates. Here's what I've learned. So over the years, I've worked on a bunch of different companies. I've hired some of the most expensive law firms on both coasts and everything else. And what I learned is that the legal system is a complete racket. You'll do a startup, and then, you'll pay for a non-disclosure agreement or something else. And it's like, they've already drafted, it's a template, right? They've already created it. They're like basically cutting and pasting the name of your company. Maybe they add a few changes here and there based on your industry, but even that's a template, because at some point in time, and so what you're paying for, what I found with lawyers, is you're paying for their relationship. So if you're doing a startup, the value of the lawyer is, potentially introducing you to partners or to investors or whatever. But in terms of the actual legal work itself, it's text. In fact, it's something that AI is much better for, by the way. So you can use these services like LegalZoom, and we've got a list of them here with what the costs are and what the ratings are. And you can get a lot of the way there, unless you have really complex stuff. But if you have really complex stuff, then you can probably afford to use a lawyer. But for most people's needs, for the people that are getting screwed the most, you can use these services and pay, $300, $400, $500, and you can get a medical trust in place. So that is something that I wanted to point out. Hold on. All right, so I'm still working through this, but anyway, you'll be able to go here and check that out. And then I put a thing in here: why use online services versus traditional lawyers, or like what is the cutoff point? So if you're using a traditional lawyer, it's going to be $1,500 to $3,000 for a simple living trust. Complex estate plan, $3,000 to $5,000. High net worth, $5,000 to $10,000. The hourly rate is going to be anywhere from $250 to $600 an hour. And so if you're doing it online, it's $150 to $600. Healthcare directive as an add-on to the trust is like free to $50. Power of attorney is included. Updates and changes are anywhere from free to $50 a year. So again, if you are thinking about this and you're thinking, oh, wow, think about how much money you are paying. For some of the people that have been on this podcast, the amount of money you will pay to set up a medical trust is less than the monthly increase that you just saw in premiums during this whole government shutdown open enrollment period. There is no reason not to consider doing this. So this is one of those things I'm like, protect yourself. You do not want the bank to own your house because you got screwed over by a bunch of insurance companies and politicians. And it's completely and totally avoidable. So I am strongly encouraging people to do this. And again, I'm going to go through this at a high level now, but you can use the chat bot, and again, we'll continue to add features. I really do want to show this map. I'm going to have to, I do really want to show it. So, anyway, so I'm going to go back and do that. Because the map shows what the laws are. There are different laws in different states. And so it mentions South Dakota is good, Alaska is good. This is an important thing. I'll just type these things into the chat box so that you can see. Do I have to set up a trust in my own state? Because by the way, there are some states like California, and I'm pretty sure like New Jersey, that have horrible trust laws. But you're probably familiar with the fact, well, you may know it because of the drama with Elon Musk, but most companies historically incorporated in Delaware. That's changing because of some of the things that have happened recently in Delaware with respect to Elon Musk. But I will tell you, from doing my research, if I'm going to incorporate, I'm going to incorporate in Nevada, or I'm going to incorporate in Wyoming, even if I'm based somewhere else. I mean, if you're doing business outside of your own state or whatever, but most people will not incorporate in their own state. And so with these medical trusts, you can form a medical trust in Alaska, even though you are in New Jersey, or even though you're in New Hampshire. So I want you to keep that in mind. And so again, I'm trying to give you the overall view here, and obviously this is a lot of information. I'll probably do a separate podcast just on medical trust, but the whole point is that all of the information eventually should be self-contained on this site. You should be able to use the chat bot and all of these tools to be able to answer every possible question that you might have on medical trusts. But I am I'm just trying to figure out what happened to this. I had a whole interactive map. All right, so that's going to anger me until that's done. I do want to show that tonight. So somebody said the OSARA medical tourism guide is a nice compiled source for access to care. Excellent work. What are the 5 and 10 year projections for lives saved with the OSARA program? Solution in Plattsburgh. I don't have any projections on that. I haven't spent a lot of time on that. I've literally taken the approach of, like, my viewpoint on this is, and Hakeem, when we had the interview on Monday, pointed out, we have next year to stop this global technocracy. We have next year to stop digital IDs from being ubiquitous. We have next year to stop HHS and RFK Jr. and everybody else from implementing AI in Medicare and Medicaid and then putting wearables on top of it. We have to exit this system. So even if I were trying to estimate what that would look like, I actually view this as more of an existential situation, which is if we don't get enough people outside of this system to halt the existing system, everybody is going to be stuck in a technocratic digital prison. That includes healthcare. That is, so I'm not sitting around making those kinds of projections. With that said, I would like to get as many people as possible. Like, I want this to go viral. And I believe that the combination of people sharing their horror stories, making this information easy. I mean, I've had people, this shutdown actually was a great catalyst because so many people saw their premiums increase to the point where they actually can't pay their bills. They're now having to trade off groceries and travel and other things because of the increase in premiums. So I don't have to, I'm not trying to create demand here. The only challenge here is, can we make these tools easy enough for people to understand? And can we figure out a way to make this viral enough where people can share their own personal stories with their own friends and family and have that go viral? And if that happens, we could talk about millions of people exiting the system by next November. I mean, that is possible. People should be livid about this, but and I am passionate about this. I hate seeing people that are miserable with their life, that don't like what they do for a living because they're stuck with these systems. And then they feel bad about themselves when they can't pay medical bills. They've been put into a trap. They've literally been trapped into a fraudulent system. And so, I'm big on empowering people. I'm big on people taking their own agency back. This is why when I say this is all about free will, this is what I mean. And this is a big part of this. And so, I, rather than sit around trying to make projections, I'm trying to figure out how quickly can I make these tools easier to use, which is why I appreciate any feedback that anyone is willing to give. And, oh man, why is that not? All right, I will find this. I'm going to stay on here until I find this. This pisses me off. I spent all this time compiling all of this information on all 50 states where you can see where all of the differences between the trust laws, color-coded by state. And so keep asking questions. I'm going to continue to pound on this until I can find this and get this back on the site, because it's an important part of it. And we did a podcast back, and I hope, Stephen, if you're out there, I know you're driving, and I don't know if we're going to be on, how late we're going to be on tonight, but I hope you can join, because, part of this started when one of the guests came on and was talking about his exact situation that he was having, premium bill and everything else, and that the concern was about catastrophic care. And so I pulled up Mike Adams' Enoch AI, but it was called Enoch at the time, and just ran a search. Oh, well, what about medical trusts? And so we walked through that. He wasn't familiar with that. Most people are not familiar with that. And why aren't people familiar with that? Because they have to work literally 12 hours a day to be able to pay their premiums, to be able to pay for this stuff, doing jobs they don't like. How much is it worth to, I mean, obviously I want to see millions of people doing this, and I want to see a complete empowerment of the individual and a complete transformation of healthcare to a system where people are taking responsibility for their own healthcare, but where we have true market-based decisions for all of this. So, cancel open enrollment sounds like you may not have good intentions. What do you mean? Don't have good intentions? What's the point of open enrollment? If you've listened to this podcast and the other podcasts, there's no value in open enrollment. There's no value in insurance. It's literally a ripoff. It doesn't protect you from bankruptcy, and no one is proposing or doing anything to fix the service. And so if you just join this, I encourage you to watch the rest of the presentation and go to oasara.com and read all of the information about medical tourism. You can literally cut your healthcare costs by 80% and get better outcomes. You are getting fleeced by the system, and single payer is not going to fix it. There's no in a single payer system, there are no incentives to improve quality or improve health. It just becomes about rationing, which is exactly where it's headed, which is exactly how AI is about to begin implementation starting next year. It's already started with the big insurance companies now, and we're seeing what the effect of that is, which is rationing and denials on a massive scale. But you have to understand something. People talk about the fact that we have $38 trillion worth of debt. We have almost $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities. And so unfunded liabilities for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. The biggest component of unfunded liabilities is Medicare, meaning when they passed these bills, Medicare Prescription Part D and all of these other things, they had no ability to pay for it. I mean, it's worse than the national debt by, a multiple of the national debt. And no one wants to talk about it. There's no money there. So how are they going to solve it? They're going to solve it by rationing healthcare. That is literally going on. Research it. Research what's going on with AI and HHS and everything else. Research Operation Stargate and what is going on with Larry Ellison and Oracle with OpenAI in conjunction with what Palantir is doing. Palantir has a contract with the NHS. They're building a complete entire healthcare database on everyone in the UK. Trump has authorized this essentially in the United States. So most people don't even know Palantir is in healthcare. Most people think about Palantir as being involved with, intelligence agencies, with predictive policing, but they're not associated with healthcare. They are all over healthcare, and they're all over healthcare globally. So I've done a podcast on this as well. I apologize. Well, actually, you can go to the aarondayshow.com and there's a chat bot there. You can actually type that in and find out which episode I talked about that at length. And I'll do I promise you, I will do a full episode on Palantir as it relates. Well, I'll do a whole AI healthcare, but with a special segment focus on Palantir. It will completely warp your perspective and change your perspective on what is actually going on. They're building out models now for risk management and everything else. When I'm talking about rationing, they are building the systems to do this. The predictive programming that they're doing with policing, they're also doing with all of your behavior as it relates to healthcare. Now that the government is responsible for 47% of healthcare spending, once that crosses 50%, then essentially it's the government dictating all of the terms of healthcare. And they've done a pretty bad job of it. And I'm not comparing it to insurance. I'm actually saying insurance is not a market-based system. It's a scam. It's a government-protected scam. What I'm saying is we need actual free markets. We need people who have individual agency, who are empowered to make decisions over their own healthcare. And those decisions are not confined by the United States government. They're not confined by doctors through the AMA who are basically trying to protect their income. It's not defined by anything. It is truly your own body and your own choice. And whatever is available, whatever anybody can come up with anywhere in the world, that is what you should have access to. So I see somebody, RR is trying to join here. Let me see if this map. I'm back. Sorry about that. Hit refresh on the wrong window. I don't know how many people do podcasts where they're running the entire podcast while coding a site. May not be a good idea, but nevertheless, here we are. I do have the map though, so exciting times. Let me share this screen and get this going here. I hope you can hear me. I apologize. I did share I refreshed the wrong window and it booted me out. There we go. Finally. Okay. So here we are. State by state trust law guide. So this is a visual way for you to see how the states rank with respect to the trust law. And again, I want to help, look, I've had I don't know if you want to call it the benefit or not, but part of this, I've worked with tons of lawyers and I've worked on a bunch of startups and everything else. So I've been exposed to a lot of stuff that a lot of people may not have been exposed to, and where it's intimidating to even engage with it. And frankly, dealing with lawyers is it sucks. There's no point at which it doesn't suck, but it's also very intimidating, because if you're already getting squeezed by insurance and squeezed by inflation and you don't have any extra time, then where are you going to carve out the time to be able to figure out how to do stuff with trusts? So this is why I put this together. So again, key point that I want to make is this, that you can get a trust in a different state. You can form a trust in a different state and put your assets in that trust. So if you're going to look at this map and you're going to say, oh, my state's not very good on this, I guess it doesn't apply to me. That's not true. You can use a different state. And as I mentioned, I believe, generally speaking, it's Alaska and South Dakota, Wyoming, Nevada are the best. I guess Tennessee's good. New Hampshire's good. It's not the best, but and then you can drill into what all of these different things means. So, all right, so what kind of trust? What are the different criteria? Does it protect my assets? Are they self-settled trusts? So you might say, okay, well, if you're looking at any of this stuff and you're like, hey, I'm new to this, and you don't know what these terms mean, the good news is we've got a nice little chat here. So what is a self-settled trust? So any second now. I'm actually pretty happy that it's worked as well as it has, because I did a whole bunch of stuff at the last minute that, probably didn't need to try to get all in there. But a self-settled trust is a trust where the person creating it can also be the beneficiary while still protecting the assets from creditors under certain conditions. So again, if you're not familiar with trust, a lot of times when you set up a trust, you can't be the beneficiary of the trust. So you've got to set up this thing and you've got to figure out who the beneficiary is going to be. And it's a whole, it's a whole racket in and of itself, right? So I want to try to streamline the process so that you don't end up going down a lot of those traps. Because if you go to a local lawyer who probably isn't even sophisticated about stuff outside of their jurisdiction or doesn't necessarily have an incentive to be, then you're going to get stuck with, well, here in New Jersey, this is the only way you can do it. And then you're going to think that that's what you have to do. This is the thing that I say to, even though I live in New Hampshire and, we were just for the 24th year in a row, I think, rated the freest state. I've never incorporated a company in New Hampshire. I would never incorporate a company in New Hampshire. I'd never structure a nonprofit in New Hampshire. Our laws suck for that. You don't have to be, just like you don't have to be stuck with a job because of insurance. You don't have to be stuck with the laws in your own state in many cases, depending on what it is that you are trying to do. I think you can actually, like, car registration here is really expensive. And I think Wisconsin has the most favorable costs, or I might be wrong on that, so don't quote me on this, but I mean, there are people that I know that get their cars registered in Wisconsin and have Wisconsin license plates. But once you break out of the thinking that you are beholden to what you think is available in your state or what you think is available through your employer and everything else, once you realize that what's actually possible is almost infinite, and you get out of the trap that they've tried to stick you into, then you'll start realizing, oh, well, hey, if this is how trusts work, what about this? What about this other thing? And then it'll expand your thinking, and you'll realize you become more empowered and realize you have more choices in many key aspects of your life. So anyway, self-settled trust is one where you can be the beneficiary, and there are only certain states that have this. So Delaware, South Dakota, and Nevada. Others like Texas and Louisiana do not permit them. So why would you use this? Protect your wealth from lawsuits, divorces, or bankruptcy. And by the way, I will say these trusts are good in general. A lot of times I poke at the American dream being home ownership being a scam, and people don't understand what I mean, because there's a lot you have to explain in it. But like, when people think they own their house, but they're actually doing a 30 or maybe now a 50-year mortgage, and go Trump, and you don't own it, And it's an asset that will be leveraged against you. It is the first thing people come after. I was in a lawsuit, which I've talked about before, and I was sued, and I ended up having insurance. I had homeowners insurance, which it was a 5.5-year lawsuit, but they ended up going after the house. That was the main thing that they wanted, and they even ended up going after my ex-wife. Your house ends up becoming a leverage point, so you want to put things in a trust anyway, because the system is a scam, and these corporations know how to use legal agreements. I've talked a lot about click wrap agreements and other agreements. They know how to manipulate the system. So you're sitting there saying, I'm living the American dream. I'm paying a 30-year mortgage and I own my house. And you find out later that it's the prime target for corporations. It's the number one asset they're going to go after. So you want to trust, not just for healthcare bills, but for anything. It's a racket to the point where, they get to the point where they've got mediation and settlements, and everybody has gotten to the point where they've got a formula for it's kind of an extortion racket. And then you have insurance companies and the whole thing. So anyway, get a trust in general, but definitely get one for healthcare. Because why healthcare? Because 2/3 of all bankruptcies are healthcare related, and 77% of the healthcare bankruptcies are homeowners. So what do you think it is that they go after when you file medical bankruptcy? They go after your house. So now, again, maybe a lot of you are familiar with this, but I want stories of all of the people, of these 1 every minute filing medical bankruptcy, which means, 0.77 people, and 0.7 or 77% of those are homeowners, right? So, I mean, you're looking at, whatever, more than 42 people an hour that are homeowners are probably filing bankruptcy where somebody's going after the house if they don't have a medical trust. And by the way, this is why I like to do these visuals. I want more of these visuals, but I want people telling those stories. Those are thousands and thousands of thousands, tens of thousands of people around the country that have lost their house because of this. You probably haven't heard of it, right? Imagine if 10,000 stories got out about people losing their house because the hospital, which wouldn't provide pricing, charged them a 5,500% markup because of this insurance scam. And as a result of that, they lost their house. How many people need to learn about that before people start realizing, what is this insurance about? How does this work? Do I really get quality healthcare in the United States? Based on what? Not any objective data. This is why, again, I know it's a lot, I'm going through a lot, kind of rambling through it, but this is really important. I think this could be really, really big. So at any point in time, what's the statute of limitations? What's the time limit for creditors to challenge trust? So wait, somebody said, how come chat isn't working on TY or White on YouTube? I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Actually, we have had kind of light comments, which we have enough people. We have 3,200 people on here. I would have actually expected normally that we would have a lot more comments. Let me go to YouTube. And by the way, I got to go to the Aaron Day Show site to see if there are any comments there. I've been too busy trying to fix the stuff in real time. Anyway, all right, so we've got comments there. Hi, Aaron. Question related to traveling to other countries. Do you need someone to help with language translation? All right, so if you're still listening to this, then this is a comment from the AaronDayShow.com chat. Generally, you don't. I mean, it depends on if you're shopping around. So as I said, if you want to shop around, but if you're going to Thailand, if you're going to Turkey, if you're going to the big destinations that I pointed out, in most cases, they already speak English. There's another thing that I'm going to add to the site where there are, they're not called consultants, but there are kind of medical tourism guides that you can work through to help you set up all of the logistics for this and to handle all of that. So there are solutions for that. But in general, if you're going to one of these larger more established medical tourism destinations, that they are going to speak English, and there are solutions around that if not. All right, so let's see. I'm going to ask it about statute of limitations, and just because we're going through here, statute of limitations and trusts. And again, look, I did the Own Nothing site, which is next on my list to improve because it's in a really alpha state. But the whole point of the Own Nothing site is to show you that you already don't own 80% of what you think you own, because you've signed click-wrap agreements. As I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about why should people use Zano or Freedom Dollar for medical tourism, it's because your bank contract says that they can cancel your account without cause. They're already tracking all of your money. They can put withdrawal limits on. You've already signed that contract and you don't even realize it, but it's become an industry contract. So it turns out that all of these industries, whether you're buying a car or a house or a mortgage or everything else, they've, quote, standardized terms. Standardized terms means they bought off a bunch of politicians to put in place laws that protect the industry at your expense. And this is pretty much how all of the contracts work. Big tech, nightmare. This is why you have lobbying groups. This is why now Facebook and Google and Microsoft and others have huge staffs of people and lobbyists that they work with on a continual basis. They're lobbying to be able to get agreements where they get to own your data and you have no competition around it. HIPAA, as I said, doesn't protect your data. It protects the government and protects covered entities. And again, who has time to go look through all this stuff? So my point with the Own Nothing site is put in the link to the contract, and then it'll give you it'll score it for you. It'll give you an A to F on 5 different criteria, and then show you the most egregious terms and put it in plain English. And then have a chat bot so that you can ask it very simple questions. It's already pre-populated with the big, rip-off points that are already in the contract. It's, the challenge with this is, being kind of libertarian-oriented or free market-oriented. There are a lot of people that are libertarians that think that, well, it's a contract, and so, somehow it's a voluntary situation, but it's not a voluntary situation based on how the politicians have been captured. It's not you having an agreement with a corporation. It's a lobbying entity forcing terms through the power of the state, and the terms are really bad. Not to go off on too much of a rant, but it is somewhat related. So, the Great Taking, which I did a podcast, I know one or two about. You don't own your ETFs or your stocks or your bonds, and you have these things through brokers. And in the event of a financial collapse, if your broker goes bankrupt, your shares don't go to you. They actually go first to the creditor of your broker. And these agreements, which this started in 1994, and all 50 states passed these changes to what are called UCC codes. The largest 4 banks are the biggest beneficiaries because there's one of these kind of too big to fail clause things. So if we have a situation where, imagine a bunch of degenerates on Wall Street gamble on packaged assets and derivatives, and all of a sudden everything goes under, the biggest beneficiaries of that are going to be Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and Citibank. This has been done legally. So check out The Great Taking. The book is available for free, and there are videos on it and everything else. I've vetted this. You can now take the contracts and put them through AI and examine it yourself. So we have a system where people don't even own their retirement funds, and you've already given up your voting rights to BlackRock and to Vanguard anyway. So you're already not voting those shares, and now you don't even own this stuff. What if I have a trust in Ohio? Should I make it in another state? Well, again, I'm not a lawyer, so some of this is, but, let's see if the chatbot's helpful. I have a trust in Ohio. Should I make it in another state, and what is involved with that? So again, a lot of this is going to be specific. I'm sure there are nuances and everything else to this. And this chatbot may not have the data for this. I've got to add more and more data. I'm building. I downloaded all of the trust laws for all 50 states. And so I put that information into a database. And so when the chatbot is doing a search, it's doing a search based on the actual laws. So this isn't like you're using ChatGPT and they train the thing on, Reddit information and you get a thing back and it's hallucinating. I'm specifically having it. The database is only information that's related to this site, but it still may be incomplete. So here we go. If you currently have a trust in Ohio, transfer to another state could offer significant advantages depending on your goals, such as enhanced asset protection, tax benefits, or greater privacy. Here's a breakdown of what's involved and whether it's worth considering. Ohio is favorable, but not top tier. It allows self-settled asset protection trusts under the Legacy Trust Act, but it has a moderate state income tax and limited trust duration compared to other states. Benefits of moving to a top tier state: Wyoming, no state income tax, strong privacy protections, and robust privacy laws. Wyoming allows 1,000-year trust durations and combines trust with LLCs for added protection. Delaware, premier trust jurisdiction with sophisticated laws. West Virginia offers these self-settled asset trusts and moderate taxes, but less robust than Wyoming and Delaware. What's involved? You need to formally transfer the trust to a new state, which involves creating a new trust in the desired state and transferring the assets. Amending the existing trust to change governing law if permitted. Many states like Wyoming and Delaware require a local trustee, legal and administrative cost, asset protection considerations. So in any event, that gives you an initial starting point for how you might look at that. So again, like I said, this isn't even version 1 of the site. If you're watching this, and if you signed up for it or whatever, you are part of the beta testing program to make improvements. I tried to get as much of the basics in here as possible, but again, I know I truly want as much feedback as you're willing to give, and we're willing to pay for it. Let me see if this works now. Okay, we have a bounty program. So as I mentioned, we're offering $1,000 total. So if we approve, we'll give you $50 Freedom Dollar for a feature request, $30 for a bug report, $20 for a UI improvement if we accept it. And then, as I said, we've got $1,000 now. If we blow through that, I'll consider what we do from there. Again, the most important part for me is it's not useful for me to have this site. It's useful to empower other people. I'm interested in the people that are, again, working jobs they don't like and then losing sleep at night that they're going to lose their house because of medical bills. I hate that happens, and it happens everywhere, and it doesn't have to happen. So the question is for that audience, do these tools make sense? Is this easy to understand? What other things would you like to see? What other information? Is there other ways of laying this information out? Other ways of interacting with the chat? What other features can we put in place in terms of I want to put a discussion group in here so that people can talk to each other. And again, if you start using AI, download, Mike Adams AI or whatever, or you don't even need to do that. You can use the AI built into the site. I want to empower people to be able to use and find this information and to work with other people. This is a group effort. But understand, they have been fleecing you. Insurance companies, hospitals, the government, the entire system. They have created a racket. On that Own Nothing site, one of the things I'm working on now is I'm trying to show the whole cycle of despair. I've said people got angry with me when I said this because I'm not a huge fan of Warren Buffett. There are a lot of people that are like, oh, he's a genius. Well, if you look at his companies are all selling products that addict people and make them sick, and then selling them solutions to the disease that was caused. So that doesn't make, whatever. You can make a lot of money on that. And look, I'm not saying that should be illegal, but I have no interest in doing those kinds of things. You can create products and services. It's not a zero-sum game. The market is not a zero-sum situation. And yes, anybody can buy whatever they want, but at the same time, it is also possible to build products and services that help people, that save people money, where all of the parties involved win. This is why when I said when I had my healthcare company, I've kind of been on a rampage ever since it was destroyed. That's what got me into political activism. And then that turned into crypto and everything else, because I try to find out what the root source of the issue is. I'm like, why is it that a successful company that rewarded people for improving their health, where the people that sponsored the rewards lowered their healthcare costs, increased their productivity, why is that something that the government wouldn't allow by law under something like Obamacare? And so I've given you part of the answer to it. I have figured it out. What I figured out is that there's no incentive, there's no aspect of the system that has any concern or regard for improving people's health or even lowering costs. It's not baked into any part of the system. And so, so there are a lot of great options out there. There are a lot of great solutions out there. But in the broader context, we are fighting this battle for free will, because what the technocrats are doing, once you start investigating Palantir Health and what the implications are of AI and wearables, and what the database of Americans is, what Real ID is as a digital ID already in 12 states and all 50 by 2027, this morphs to a technocratic system, and a technocratic system is a top-down system where scientists and engineers, now I would say argue replaced by AI, make decisions for you using social credit systems and a currency based on energy. And this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a documented movement that started in the 1930s. Elon Musk is the poster child for technocracy. His grandfather was the head of the Canadian Technocracy Party. Everything that Musk is talking about is absolutely technocratic in nature. He is for UBI explicitly. He is saying that credit, or that money will go away and will ultimately be based on wattage. That is an energy credit system. That is the core design of technocracy. That is the foundational principle of technocracies, to replace the price system with an energy credit based system. This is what he is pushing. And when you think about Doge, so the idea is not to reduce the role of government, it's to reduce the people equation of it and replace it with AI. Well, I will tell you, government will be more invasive. There may not be as many people working in government under the AI system, but the government will have more tracking and more control over your daily life. This is what technocracy is all about. This is what the fight is about. And so in my estimation, the two biggest ways we defeat this is by not using their money and by opting out of their healthcare system and not being trapped in that. And if we do that, then they're going to lose the capacity to force a complete centralized system on everyone. So that is kind of, you know, if you're trying to wonder where all of these pieces fit in place, I mean, if you go to daylightfreedom.org and you see the 6 different websites and everything that we're putting together, all of them relate to this. The core thesis, the core premise of all of it is technocracy versus freedom. Free will is at stake, and you're not going to vote your way out. You are not going to change the system. Again, the joke, I see Rick Scott talking about, we're going to reform insurance, or we'll have people can buy insurance over state lines. This is a guy who made millions of dollars on Medicare fraud. There isn't a single person in Congress that is talking about anything that's a market-based solution. They're all representing different interests in this system that has grown to a $4 trillion annual cost, where we've seen even before the COVID, we saw declining life expectancy beginning. It cannot be fixed. And I talk to people about this a lot. No one wants to hear this, but I've studied this. You will not find a nation or an empire that has ever righted the ship, nor will you find a fiat currency that's ever been successful. 100% failure rate for fiat currencies, typically within 27 years. Even global reserve currencies collapse eventually. And so a lot of people get attached to the existing system. But if you actually sit back, if you're in a job you don't like for this insurance that's not helping you, and you're living out of fear so that hopefully you can have a retirement that doesn't get sucked away by the health insurance thing, you're not really living already. You're familiar with it, this has become familiar to everyone because this is the structure that we're in, but there's absolutely no reason that we should find this to be acceptable, and we should not allow these people to continue to do it. So setting up a medical trust, you should do anyway. If you're not signed up for the concept of exiting insurance and opting out of open enrollment yet, whatever, there's no reason not to set up a medical trust. And you want to protect yourself from more than just, health insurance. Again, 2/3 of the bankruptcies are that, but then there's the other third. So you want to protect yourself from that. And by the way, who are the other third? The banks are involved, right? So do you want to give away your house, and do you want your assets going to hospitals, big pharma companies, insurance, and banks? If you're okay with the idea that everything that you've worked for may end up being transferred over to them through a legal process, then keep doing what you're doing. If not, consider spending $150 to $600 forming a legal trust to protect your assets. So again, this is kind of I'll do more in-depth stuff on this. I'm kind of torn. You know what I'd like to see? I mean, maybe if somebody out there is listening to this as a lawyer, maybe there's a hybrid situation here where maybe we can find some lawyers that are willing to help people where, maybe you do one of the online things and then there's some, consulting where it's not, again, I've worked with so many lawyers that I've figured out the racket. It's like, okay, you have a template agreement. The lawyer doesn't even work on the legal document. There's a paralegal that's taking a template and substituting out your name. Maybe the lawyer will put in, a sentence or two, but by and large, then they charge like $400 or $500 an hour. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Maybe there are some white hat lawyers out there that might be interested in helping people around the world or around the country with their medical trust. But again, there are these online solutions, AI-based solutions. And as we do more of these, again, I want this to be a community project where I have a discussion board where people can talk about their experiences setting up their medical trust, and people can help each other. We can use the AI, we can use the information, we can use these online services, and we can use and work with each other by setting up a community. But I want to empower people to not get crushed by this healthcare complex and these banks. It really bothers me that it happens. It really bothers me watching people not enjoy their life, not fulfilling their purpose, doing something that they dread every day, where often the jobs that they're doing are part of the system itself that they don't believe in, right? I mean, so much of that now, because look at how many of these jobs are actually in the healthcare sector itself. And so there are people that are in that. And then once they find out about it, it's like, oh God, now I'm part of the problem. But with everything that's going on with AI is going to replace more jobs than people think. But that's not a bad thing if the job that you're working you don't like. This is why I keep on saying, people are like, what should I invest in? Invest in figuring out what your purpose is, and invest in and if you're not doing what you want to do, invest in acquiring the skills. Holding Bitcoin or buying gold or putting money into an ETF is not going to help you do what you want, fulfill your purpose in life. So I mean, I'm not going to give investment advice, but I do know where AI is. I see where AI is going. I use it a lot. It's accelerating faster than anyone thinks. The people that think that it's a bubble, I mean, the truth is, 90% of it plus of the companies are going to fail. But the ones that make it out are going to be the dominant players globally, because it is a global technocratic system. So if Amazon came out of the .com thing with a, $1-2 trillion market cap and was the big winner coming out of AI is going to be like a $500 trillion market cap. And I'm not even kidding. The AI is going to be 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 orders of magnitude more impactful than the .com era. So while people may say, well, it was a bubble, yeah, if you invested in pets.com, you probably should have done some research, but you also probably could have invested in Amazon. And I say this is my first company was an e-commerce company that I formed a week before Amazon was formed. I had to print brochures. I actually found one. I'll dig it up and actually maybe post it online. When I was talking to investors and when I was trying to sign vendors and things to create these online storefronts, I would have to have a section on there about, why it is we think people will be willing to enter their credit card information online. I had to bring my math professor from Duke in. He actually flew in, and we actually spent a weekend trying to figure out how to encrypt credit card information. This is how early this was in 1995. So I was there, and so you had all these groups that would put together market research projections, and then everybody would get all excited about this. Oh, this is going to be a big industry. Well, if you go back and look at it, it actually turned out to be bigger than what the so-called outlandish projections were. But it was only 1 or 2 or 3 companies that ended up owning all of it. So Silicon Valley, Peter Thiel in particular, he wrote a book, 0 to 1, and others, they take a winner-take-all approach. This is why Google paid $3 billion for one developer. This is why Meta, like Mark Zuckerberg, paid $1.5 billion for one developer, because there is no second place. If you win it all, and if you don't win, you get 0. So you will invest, and you will do everything that you can to win. But what that means is most of the players will not win. So in the end, AI will have a more transformative impact on life and the economy than any other technology that we've experienced so far. Generally speaking, the trend is it will be concentrated by 1 or a few players. However, related to what we're doing with OSARA, the reason that I talk about Zano, the reason that I talk about Freedom Dollar, privacy coins, self-custody AIs like what Mike is doing is that the real battle here at all levels is technocracy versus freedom. There's a technocratic version of AI, open AI, working, if David Sachs comes in and then they use the government and this new policy to dictate and invest and backstop AI companies, or to change the laws to benefit data centers to the expense of the citizens in the community under the guise of national defense, and then they bring in lawyers and they bring in politicians to define the rules for how AI can be used to put a censorship layer on top of it. That is the technocratic implementation of AI. That's not good. The version of it, like what I'm using right now, like the fact that, okay, here's a website that you can go to. I have a database on it. I have the source data. I'm not using open AI. I'm not using any of these other things. It's just a way for you to chat with raw data that I have. Well, Mike Adams has collected over 2 years. I think he has at least 1 petabyte of data. He has every scientific paper ever written. He has all of the information he's collected over years. He's curating primary source information. If you've seen the thing that he has that generates books, I've joked, I've created 4 books in the last week using his system. 200, 300-page books by putting in a prompt. Those were generated based on the data he actually has in his database, in his system. So now, and I'm going to do this, I'll go a little bit off of this because there aren't as many questions. There should be a lot more questions. We have a decent number of people. I'm hoping people are excited about this, and that this video gets out and reaches more people, because this can really help a lot of people. This site can actually help almost everyone. So I'm hoping that people take it seriously and put some feedback into it and everything else, and understand that I really am doing this because I truly believe that we can empower individuals to take back their life, their control, and their free will. I think this is a great tool to do it. But I need your input to make the tool useful. So I'm showing you now, this is books.rightlearn.ai. And look at these books. These books were just created. This was probably just created. I like it raw. Transform Your Health, Energy and Life, The Power of Living Food, Off-Grid Sanctuary, Shadows of Mind, Starlink, Drone Death and Decentralization. So these books are generated based on the data that Mike Adams has collected. So he has all of the source information. He was telling me today, I can't even remember how many books he has. 20,000 books, 30,000 books. I only have hundreds of thousands of research papers. So when you go to ChatGPT and you put in a prompt, it's been trained on data, and that it comes back with some assortment of words in an order based on the information that's been trained on. But these big models have been trained on the general internet. They've been trained on Reddit, right? I mean, garbage in, garbage out. And frankly, these big models have been trained on garbage. Mike's model is trained on the kind of data that I think a lot of people here would be interested in. And one of the things he did was he actually had some, I don't know if that's excuse me, part of the system yet, but he took a whole bunch of information in China on herbal medicine and actually had it translated from Chinese into English and put that into the system. So he has sources of data that his AI has been trained on that are not in Grok. They're not in any of these other things at all. They weren't even trained on that information. On top of that, you're getting whatever the ethics committee of a bunch of woke, technocrats came up with, censoring and filtering the garbage data that comes back out at you. So all of these books, when you see the actual book itself, so let me show you my books. So, excuse me, this came about. We had Rich J on here. We were doing the online Q&A, and Rich J popped in, and we started having a conversation about, he asked the question of, what is the data surveillance situation like in public schools? What data are they collecting on our kids, like versus when we were in school? And as much as I try to track all this technocracy stuff, honestly, it's impossible to have a handle on even a small percentage of it. But I haven't been tracking that. Our kids don't go to public school, so I don't have direct first-hand experience with it. So I looked it up, and it's like, since 9/11, they have started to track all kinds of things, including Microsoft and Xbox using the video camera to detect, use facial recognition to try to detect and score kids' emotional states. And then this data is poured into other systems. And I'm like, really? Like, so just based on doing a couple of searches, I found out that this was the case. So I put that prompt into this AI, and it created an entire book on it with references. So you can see the chapters here: AI grading and the death of human judgment. By the way, if you want to pop in here, I'm lost trying to figure out Zano. All right, links tutorials are there. All right, well, Sylvia, I'll help you with that at some point. I'm going to do a new set of tutorials on that. Actually, in part for the OSARA site, I'm going to go through and make really easy step-by-step. Part of the problem with crypto and everything is it's new, but then new wallets are added that add Zano. And so every time you add a new wallet, then the wallet changes, and then they make a change and an upgrade and everything else. And so I'm going to work with AI to try to figure out a way to have a dynamic tutorial where the tutorial isn't out of date. Because one problem has been, I would do these in-person workshops. If somebody sat in on an in-person workshop that I did 15 months ago, most of the information is completely out of date. If you actually went through and say, oh yeah, remember he said do this, this, and this. Well, if you go to that wallet now, it doesn't work like that. It's got a different layout, and then this works a different way. So this is a challenge, and I want to figure out, and I'm sure I can with AI, a way of staying on top of, making sure that each of the screenshots as you're walking through step by step how to do this is actually accurate in real time, and not 6-month-old data that, the page doesn't look like that anymore. Because new people that haven't done crypto before, it may be, all it is a UI change, but the UI change to somebody that's not familiar with the technology means the difference between whether they understand how to use it or not. So anyway, this book is, long story short, you have Google provides these Google Chromebooks, which kids use, and they're collecting data. This data is being matched up with data from IBM. You have security cameras in school. You have, what were some of the other things? You have medical records now. You have all kinds of stuff related to vaccination and everything else. So in other words, our kids are completely being tracked. And there's even social media surveillance in school. So you can go through here, and so rise of social media in schools. Mechanisms of social media surveillance in schools are multifaceted and insidious. Schools are deploying advanced monitoring software that scans students' social media profiles for keywords, phrases, or images that could be deemed inappropriate or threatening. These tools are often marketed as necessary for preventing bullying, self-harm, or violence, but they also enable schools to police students' thoughts and expressions in ways that extend far beyond the classroom. So anyway, there's this whole book on this now that literally, Rich J was on here. We had a little chat, and then we started to dig into a little bit. I'm like, all right, well, that's enough for an outline. Let's have Mike's thing create a book. All right, we created the book, and then here are the source information. So it created the book, and here are the links to the web. Here are the websites and the different sources by chapter for all of the information. So I'm saying this to say that's pretty phenomenal what he's created. So the AI can be empowering, but if we don't start taking control of this ourselves, if we don't take control of our own health and exit the centralized systems, if we don't start using technology in a way where we're driving it. This is why I talk about the above phone, which I should have within the next week, a de-Googled phone that has these privacy things on it already. If we don't actively build alternatives and use these alternatives, the default is that this technocratic tyranny is going to be what dominates. And what I struggle with, so I'm going to show this video since no one's popping into the chat. I'm going to show this video just because it's a good discussion point. Hopefully somebody will chime in. I'm hoping some people will pop into the chat. But I want to play this video, and then we'll talk about it a bit.
Live free or die, but death's not the worst. It's waking up empty, it's dying of thirst. Trading your days for insurance and pills, while the machine builds your cage and you're paying the bill. Quiet desperation, that's the real grave. A life half lived as a comfortable slave. This ain't what you were born for, you know it's true. You feel it in your chest, breaking through. They're wiring the walls, closing in, tracking your dollars underneath your skin. Left and right, same throne, same crown. No one stands up, no one makes a sound. They hand you a ballot like it means something real. Two wings of one bird, same deal, same steel. We say no, no to the chase, no to the dollar running through our veins, no to the white coats, no to the lies. This is the day that we rise. It's hers right here, it's hers right now. Your rights are yours, you take them back, not giving out. Not from the left, not from the right. They were always yours, now step into the light. The daylight breaks, a new day comes. We take it back, every last one. Live free or die, we fan the flame. Nothing will ever be the same. Fan the flame.
So anyway, I put together that song. That's about as accurate as I can depict everything that I've actually been trying to say here tonight as it relates to the technocracy and medical tourism and everything else. But that song took me a while to put together in a variety of senses, the lyrics, the layout, and everything else, because this was a lot of this AI songs are kind of, more generic, or they have the AI assist with a lot more of the lyrics. That one was very much me driving that aspect of it, because I think that is the message. People are living these lives of quiet desperation. There's no political difference, and we either have technocracy with resistance or without. And unfortunately, people thought that Trump was going to defeat, like I mentioned this before, you see Alex Jones saying, oh, we defeated the globalists. No, we didn't. We sped up the globalists by 5 years, but people think that we defeated the globalists. What has happened with Real ID, AI surveillance, the Genius Act and the backdoor CBDCs through stablecoins and now the Clarity Act is a 5-year acceleration of the centralized control and surveillance of every asset that we have. And so, that song, I'm toying with the idea of running for U.S. Senate here in New Hampshire, not because if you vote for me, I can fix things in Washington, D.C. The whole point of the campaign would be to travel around the state telling people, you have to fix your own problems. I do what I'm doing now. I'll show people medical tourism. I'll show people how to use privacy coins. Where we've lost our way is in believing other people can solve our problems. No one can solve our problems, and we've forgotten that. We've given up our agency, but we can take it back. So there is an optimistic aspect to it, but we're running out of time, and I don't gather a huge sense of urgency. And I think the election actually worked against us because it disarmed people. And as I've said many times, people were like, oh, you were fighting CBDCs, you must be happy that Trump signed an executive order. And I'm like, no, it was actually a rug pull. And I actually pushed for him. I talked to Vivek, and Vivek read my book and pushed. Trump came out against CBDCs in New Hampshire, in my state, the day before the primary. And it's been a gigantic rug pull. So now we have $27 trillion worth of stable coins that people are using, and where the government has control over the tracking, and the Federal Reserve is now involved. So we get CBDC level surveillance on something that was previously private. And this is all being done and used to sell more government debt, to fund more wars, and to fund more tyranny all over the world. So no, I'm not happy about that. No, that isn't a win. It's a gigantic loss. But I have people that congratulate me on something where I'm like, yikes. So I've spent 3 years trying to educate people on this. I have friends that are in prison related to this. I have other people that were threatened and weaponized and everything else. And man, the war on crypto is not over. And the fight against the globalists has accelerated. We don't have Klaus Schwab as the head of the WF. Now we have Larry Fink. I want you to understand how bad that is. Larry Fink from BlackRock is now the co-chair of the WEF. What is he pushing for? Tokenizing assets, tokenizing stocks, tokenizing bonds. Now he's a fan of Bitcoin. Of course he likes Bitcoin because it's a surveillance version of digital gold that he gets to hold. It's like, and remember, Larry Fink was pushing ESG. He was pushing all this environmental stuff. And now people are saying, well, Bitcoin is energy, and energy is a form of currency. This is not freedom money. And I know libertarians don't like it when I say this, but a lot of you have sold out entirely, and by an asset that was hijacked first by Jeffrey Epstein and people in the intelligence community, and then now being weaponized against everybody else by Larry Fink. So no, you're not promoting freedom. But in the interest of, I'll stay on here for a while because I know somebody's going to. I know there are some people that want to jump in. So I'm going to put the link in again. Is the link to the live stream. I'm going to play another short clip because, again, I don't like Bitcoin, but if you are going to use Bitcoin, friends don't let their friends use transparent Bitcoin. So one good thing that has happened for Bitcoin has come out of the Zano ecosystem, and that is confidential layer. I love this video. I encourage you to go visit Rothmus, ROTHMUS on X, and like if you can, and share that post. But he posted this today. This was just.
We have achieved something unprecedented, a unified ideology, a world built on the pure, incorruptible foundation of Bitcoin, the money of the future. It is destiny, one cause, one resolve, the Bitcoin standard. Those who resist, who cling to shadow systems and contradictory truths, shall be silenced by the unstoppable engine of adoption. The Bitcoin standard is perfect. It is the future. We will prevail.
July 2025. Confidential layer went live, allowing Bitcoin and Ethereum users to bridge their coins onto a completely private by default protocol, giving power back to the people. Whether traditional finance likes it or not, Bitcoin is now private.
I really enjoyed, Rothmas on X. Let me see if I can find the link to that. But it'd be good to get some momentum on that post. I want as many people as possible to see that. I thought it was a really well done video, very powerful, and it really does say quite a bit in there because, again, Michael Saylor has been talking about, Bitcoin is for KYC AML, it's for paying your taxes, it's for not replacing Visa and MasterCard. I mean, if you want to see the hijacking of Bitcoin, watch the Roger Vere's talk in 2012 and watch what Michael Saylor said. So maybe today some of the original intention and utility of Bitcoin has been restored through confidential layer. I will do a podcast on that, on confidential layer, how to use it, because it's integrated in the Edge wallet currently, and it either is or will be in the Bitcoin.com wallet. And what's great about that, if you're using the Edge wallet, you can swap your Bitcoin to what's called BTCX, which is a private version of Bitcoin, right within the wallet. So there's no complicated, you're not using a centralized exchange or anything to even do this. You do this right within the wallet by clicking a button. And I'm pretty sure that's how Bitcoin.com is going to do it as well. So now anyone in the world that has Bitcoin and the whatever $2 trillion worth of buying power that is involved with that, you can now start spending it privately with lower fees using BTCX. So this is a big. I still like Bitcoin. It's still 7 transactions per second. It's still hijacked, but at least maybe people can start using it in a way that's effective, which means, not through an ETF, not on a centralized exchange, not through any of these third parties, not through Cash App or anything that Jack Dorsey's doing. And I do want to say that, a lot of people are like, well, he's really helping people with use. He's right in the middle of this. He's a third party in the middle of this. Being a third party isn't really enabling peer-to-peer transactions. And even what they're doing with Lightning Network, they've taken Lightning Network and added KYC and having to put in your social security number and everything. That's actually not even a solution. It's absurd. It's backwards from a technology perspective. Are you on correct mic or is it further away? No, I'm on the same mic, but I'll speak into it. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So it's moving around a bit. So anyway, so back to OSARA. I was really hoping there would be some more questions. You can use OSARA now. I'm going to. There's supposed to be a login feature, which it's free to use, and you don't even have to use a password. You can use the magic link thing, where it just sends you a link, and then you click on it and you log in. It's useful to do that, though, particularly if you're going to do the bounty system and you're going to report bugs or enhancements or features. And then if you're trying to reach out to medical tours and facilities, and you use the email feature, then it'll pre-populate your email address. So anyway, I'll add that back on. But I'm going to send around an email, and obviously we'll be putting out a lot of posts. I want to get as much feedback as possible. And as I said, we're offering $1,000 in Freedom Dollar and fUSD, various levels for reporting different things and suggesting functionality. But I do want your feedback, because again, this is my best effort to put together the key points. But I will tell you what. So my intention with this, and let me try to find one of these days I'll share a picture of my work environment here. I have 6 screens. It's actually insane. This is why I'd be dead if I wasn't wearing these red light glasses. To be honest with you, it's not a great situation in terms of blue light. But I want this to be about action. I want this site to be where people are engaged, where people are sharing information with each other, but also I want it to be about building a movement around these campaigns. Like, how many people are going to pledge to set up a medical trust? You don't have to actually confirm that you've set up a medical trust, but just sign a pledge saying, yeah, I will do this. I will investigate medical tourism the next time I need a procedure. I need to have this added on here as well. I will cancel my insurance during open enrollment, because if we can get these numbers up, I mean, this is a real movement. People say to me, how are we going to defeat this? And a lot of times, I mean, I'm on podcasts and interviews and everything else, and a lot of people are defining the problem. And it almost gets to the point where it's like, all right, now it's more demoralizing. Right now it's like, oh, this situation's worse than I thought. And it's gotten worse. So I did this podcast, and then 2 weeks later, it's 10 times worse. Now they've added this, and now 3.5 billion people have digital ID in 17 different countries. And now, wow, Palantir just integrated all of this information. And so that's not helpful unless we do something about it. So when people say, well, what can I do? You can do this. You can set up a medical trust. You have until next November to figure this out. And by next November, weigh all of your options. And there's some other options for insurance that I'll put on here as well. Although I'm not recommending anything that's captured in anything that's within the system. Even some of these other models that have come out, crowd something health, they still don't get at the fundamental problem. I'm not trying to rag on these guys, because what they're doing is certainly an improvement on what people have. But there's something called crowd health, and it's for people that are already pretty healthy, and it's a risk pool that has its own kind of scoring system and everything. So if you're already pretty young and pretty healthy, it can be somewhat better than the existing system, but it doesn't address the underlying cost of care. It doesn't actually provide better healthcare outcomes. Somebody asked, for those close to Medicare, and given that it is going bankrupt, would it be wise to opt out of Medicare premiums and go this route? I mean, yeah, I would consider strongly that. I would investigate all this stuff. I put in the things in the tools, but even I mentioned that United Healthcare is being sued, and it's because of their Medicare Advantage. So you can get this extra Medicare on top of Medicare insurance through United Healthcare and everything else. And apparently they're just denying all these claims. And I will tell you what's coming is HHS starting to implement AI. And again, there are two sides to this. And this is the thing where I get frustrated is, people, it's kind of like we're not going to allow sugary drinks for food stamps. People are like, well, yeah, but we already have this, so we might as well make it better. When you never address the root problem, then now we're stuck. Now the goalpost has shifted, and now all we're discussing is who's going to control this social credit system within the healthcare. That's not you've already lost because you've engaged in the wrong battle. And there are many cases of this. In fact, there are mostly those kinds of cases. This is why I got frustrated with politics in New Hampshire, which is people will fight these little small things and then they'll lose on the massive things. Like in New Hampshire, we fought Real ID for a long time, and then we caved. And then we tried to fight Medicaid expansion, and then it passed. And so now the federal government has an even greater percent. No one ever talks about that. We talk about these little small wins, and then we choose to not even play on the big issues. Well, I'll tell you, if you don't play on the big issues, then you're basically just wasting your time. You basically already accepted defeat, and now you are implementing what I call a slow fail strategy, where the entire basis of what you're doing is trying to fail more slowly than the other guy, but you're not even moving in the right direction. And so politically, people have adopted this as a strategy. I've got news for you. Unless you set big goals, unless you do things in a principled manner, then what happens with this slow fail political strategy, to me, is the equivalent of living a life of quiet desperation politically. And this country was not founded by people that wanted to make incremental improvements. It was founded from a very principled position about, in writing, limiting the role of the state, which was a phenomenal and novel invention. I mean, Magna Carta, but it was a massive shift in approach. And so you have people today that say, well, you could never accomplish that, these are the areas that we can play in. That fails throughout human history every single time. That is not a winning strategy. That is a fear-based desperation strategy. So again, I look at it as the default is a digital prison based on what's actually going on behind the scenes. And I'm trying to figure out how to simplify all of the research that I've done on what's going on with these databases. So Musk will talk about using AI. And again, the way that they've sold it, and I've talked about this in several episodes as well. You have this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's been promoting the idea that a dictator or a monarch is better than democracy, and that we should give more power to the executive branch because historically monarchies have done better than democracies. And so a whole bunch of people, including libertarians, have bought into this story. And what's wrong with it is there are several things wrong with it. One, we're not a democracy, so it's not even the right comparison. It's like saying, well, a dictator or a monarch would be better than this form of government that we don't even have. Well, okay, you're fighting an imaginary fight. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is that the whole purpose of all of this is not to implement, the monarchy is a transition state to a technocracy. So every day now, what is Elon Musk's feed is nonstop technocracy. Robots are going to replace this. We're going to replace this with this algorithm. We're going to use UBI. Money's going to go away. It's going to be replaced by wattage. He's literally taking the entire playbook of technocracy. And if you understood that it's not about making things more efficient, it's literally about taking away your individual ability to make decisions and putting all of the decision-making into the AI. If you understand that, then what you understand is that what people are cheering on right now is literally giving up their free will. Now, the problem is people are cheering it on. Now, in part, he controls the algorithms. I guarantee you that he is suppressing technocracy. We should have 10 times as many people on this podcast. And I've noticed it as well. I mean, just based on the number of followers that I have and everything else, this information, and I only get the number of people on here that I do is other people are willing to share it. And part of the reason I play the music is at the beginning is so I can DM people and send things out in groups, because the natural reach that I get, even with 48,000 followers or whatever, it would reach maybe a couple hundred people. But Musk doesn't want people taking an anti-technocracy position. Remember when people started talking out about against H-1B visas, and he started removing accounts and shadow banning people? Then he changed the terms and conditions to state that he can do that. So it's in the terms and conditions for X. Anybody who believes X is a free speech platform has been conned, right? And then it comes down to, well, it's better than it was. I would argue having direct censorship where you're being censored is better than thinking that you have free speech when you don't. It's kind of the equivalent of right now, we have technocracy without resistance. We would have been better off if the election went the other way, because people would absolutely be protesting this. You have the medical health community, the medical freedom community has been completely paralyzed by Maha. They're all sitting around saying, hey, trust the plan, and Bobby's going to fix it and everything else. And believing that, because they believe that he knows how politics works, even though there's no indication that that's true. He didn't even realize he couldn't get into that the Democrat Party wouldn't allow him in. He didn't understand how running as an independent would work. There's no reason we should give this guy any credit for having any actual political skill. I mean, having relatives get assassinated doesn't make you knowledgeable about current politics and how to get things done. But the medical freedom community, which is a very passionate community that's always been very principled, usually because they've had a very close family member or friend or themselves injured by this. These are the best activists that we have, and they're sitting around hoping that RFK is going to fix things when RFK is bringing in technocracy. He's meeting with Andreessen Horowitz. He's meeting with wearables companies. They're putting in place Palantir Health, which is the opposite of medical freedom. So we don't have the voices that we would normally have as critical activists. They're not in the fight. They've been completely, tasered and stunned and are basically not doing anything. And now I know a lot of them are well-intentioned and actually believe that something good is going to happen. I think that's pretty naive at this point. I mean, as I said early on, chances of anything good happening are almost zero. But if they didn't happen in the first 100 days, it's not going to happen. Well, look at where we are now. I mean, we're close to, if this Nancy Mace resigns early, the Republicans are going to lose control of the House before the midterms. They're probably going to lose control of the House during the midterms, and they may lose control of the Senate. So it's not going to get better. Whatever mandate Trump had, he had it for 100 days. And what did he do? He went after his enemies. He tried to consolidate power, did some crony crypto deals. I mean, and so that's it. And try to create a sovereign wealth fund. So there's no political solution. But I don't know how to get people to understand the urgency on the timing. So anyway, long story short, I hope we get some feedback, certainly on the site. I hope people use the site. I certainly will be working on it night and day until the launch, and then certainly ongoing beyond that. But definitely want all your feedback, and the critical feedback is even the more important, because again, I'm not presenting this as a finished product. I'm presenting as I have presented it in the state that it's in, and hopefully expressed what the intention is of it, and hopefully people will get excited about it and start taking some action. And look, if you have a friend or a family member, I'm sure everybody on here. In fact, I'll ask this and see if anybody puts this in the chat. Is there anybody that doesn't know somebody that has had a recent bad experience with the healthcare system? Is there anybody out there listening to this is like, oh, I don't know what he's talking about. The healthcare system's great. Pricing's transparent. I haven't had any issues. And it's not just whether you've had any issues. Is there anybody out there that doesn't know somebody in their immediate circle that is dealing with difficulties related to these healthcare costs? Because I would be surprised. So far, even if I'm, with friends and family that are not necessarily in my ideological sphere, everyone has serious issues with what's going on with the healthcare system, which was highlighted through the shutdown. Rob Braxman has a privacy advocate and has developed ungoogled phone. You should interview him or have him on the roundtable. All right, I'll take a look at that, and I think it's good to do that. Yeah, we all know at least somebody. I mean, and the only people that haven't had a bad experience are people that haven't had any experience with it. Because generally, if you've had an experience, it's a real outlier. Even when I talk to people in the, if you talk to retired doctors or people that are near retiring, I mean, they're disgusted with what's happened with the medical system. I mean, and then they're guarded about it. Like, they don't want to go publicly and say it, but they're like, wow, this is real. I'm embarrassed to have been a part of this. But people won't, you know how few people it takes to have the courage to stand up, and then that creates a snowball because so many people are afraid. This is why the people that do speak up get targeted, but it's a really small number of people that need to speak out in order to get the ball here. And so I want to make the site easy enough to use and engaging where people feel like, yeah, I'm part of a movement here to take back my health, to protect my assets, to take back my agency. So I'm making decisions about my healthcare, not giving it up to institutions that have failed us for decades. To me, hopefully that would be exciting. I mean, I know people are busy, and so they're busy trying to pay for groceries, balancing whether they're going to be able to pay for groceries or the increase in insurance premiums. So I know it's hard to cut through, and I know these podcasts can go long. Which, by the way, I mean, next year, so I try to make this content available in different forms, and part of what I've been trying to automate here is to be able to say, all right, here's some short clips, here are memes, here's music, here's everything else. I mean, I don't expect too many people to sit around and listen to this for 3.5 hours. I find it useful to do because it's just me showing whatever I'm doing in real time. And I think there's so much happening so quickly that if I, for instance, on something like AI, if I was like, oh, I'm going to plan a podcast on this for a month from now to show you what I'm doing right now, I'll have a podcast on it in a month. In a month, I will have done 10 other things, and whatever that thing is isn't even relevant. I want to try to show people how fast it's going. This is why these books, try the book thing, create your own book and see what that's like, and then think about that. Like, I was having a conversation with somebody this afternoon. I mean, when you can create your own books, create your own music, create your own movies, this is going to redefine. I mean, no, I'll be honest with you. I've actually played around with. I've cloned my voice using AI, and it's almost indistinguishable. In fact, this could be AI driven. It's not AI driven, but at some point, I could do a podcast that's completely AI driven, probably within the next month. Because I've thought about that. So I mean, I lay these things out, and I put together notes and figure out what I want to say and everything else. And maybe some days I have a cough, some days I'm on, some days I'm tired, or whatever. It's like, well, would it be better if I just, took an avatar of me with my voice and actually delivered it at the best level that I can? I could do that. Now, what are the implications? Of course, other people can do that. So how are we going to be even interacting with media moving forward? What is this even going to be like when you can create your own content? You can determine on your own how you're going to have information presented to you. I mean, I know there are a lot of people that will say, well, there's going to be no shared human experience anymore, and so it's bad. The funny thing is, so I was in college, and actually I dropped out after my first year, but I was in this to start my first company, but I was in this sociology class. And the whole sociology class was about media. And so, of course, the guy's a socialist. And it was one of these guys where the professor's like 85 years old. I know he would stand up and he'd actually have drool coming out of his mouth. But it was one of these classic things where he wrote the textbook. And, and so his whole premise was, so this was like 95. So his whole premise was that it's bad that we have cable TV, because we were just moving to cable TV at that point. And this guy, I think, was British, because he was a big fan of the BBC. He's like, well, we should have, everybody should have common information coming from one source. And his whole argument was that when we move away from that, we get into narrow casting, was the term that he used, and we end up with these communities where people are in kind of echo chambers. Now, understand, in '95, this is just when the World Wide Web just started to become popular. This is when I don't even know if Netscape was a company. Netscape may have been a company. There was one web browser or whatever. And so my whole argument was, of course, I was involved with the internet really early. And I'm like, no, this is great. And so I wrote this 1.5-page paper, and he wrote 2 pages of comments. And he's like, if you have all the answers, why are you still in school? And I dropped out, not because of that, but in part, I'm sitting there like, this guy is literally trying to teach us that without having something like the BBC with government centralized content, society will fall apart. And so now it's interesting to reflect on that now. Now we're moving to the point where I did a podcast on this in 2020 before I was shadow banned. And my entire point behind that is we had 3 media companies, CBS, ABC, and NBC, but they were essentially the same. I mean, they were government regulated and they were pushing similar content. And then we went to cable, but that didn't really open up. Cable did become just about, there was no journalism. It's just, we're going to appeal, Fox is going to appeal to this demographic, MSNBC is going to appeal to this demographic. There's no objective reporting in any of it. It's just, am I going to be selling my pillows, or am I going to be selling gender reassignment surgeries? And then, what kind of content do I want to pass off as news in order to do those things? And that's effectively where that went. And we had the internet, which, promised to decentralize things even further. And then that got co-opted pretty quickly into big tech companies that ended up being centralized and engaging in censorship. The fight has always been, I think that this whole idea of the illusion of free speech or the illusion of choice versus actually having choice. So what I talk about when I describe what's going on with X, is it better that, do we have more free speech when people are essentially being algorithmically shadow banned and have the illusion of free speech? Is that better? or would we be better off knowing and having an understanding of how the level of censorship, or knowing that we're being outright censored so that we can at least pursue alternatives? X is getting to the point now where they already screen your ID using an Israeli company to determine your identity. And now they are doing freedom of reach, which is essentially a social credit score. He has an algorithm, and the algorithm, something came out, if people block you, the thing that came out recently, and I want to vet exactly what it was, but I mean, basically you are downgraded based on whether or not advertisers would want to have their ads next to your content. So what that means is, in essence, what do we have? We have big Fortune 500 technocratic WEF companies determining the algorithm of what information gets presented on the basis of ad revenue. Well, so this is not a great outcome. Next comes X payments, which I guarantee you will eventually have a stablecoin component to it that's tied to your ID, which is already digital. When Musk put out that he's looking for some software developers, so I clicked on it to see what he was looking for, and a big heavy part of the job description was compliance with know your customer laws and anti-money laundering laws, and it was all about compliance. So X, he bought Twitter to make X WeChat. WeChat is essentially the social credit system, everything app in China. So this guy's not a hero. This is not free speech, and libertarians don't get this. You got to like compartmentalize some of this stuff. He's great at executing on things, but that doesn't mean that the things that he's executing on are pro freedom. So just because he's good at executing things doesn't mean that the things he's executing are good. And that distinction gets lost. But I have no idea how to puncture that, because what am I going to do? Most of the traffic that we have on here is from his platform, as shadow banned as it may or may not be. If you build another social media platform, good luck. Then you are going to be preaching to the choir, as it were. And the issue is that we've got to try to wake people up. So anyway, well, I know it's getting late. We're coming up on 3 hours and 45 minutes. If no one's going to pop on, I know a couple of people that would pop on are in situations where they actually can't either get access to the internet or can't get out of a work situation. So I'm going to try to figure out how to structure these chats a little bit better. But I will be posting, and if you would, probably give me until this weekend, because I know there's still some flaws with the site. I want you to be able to at least log into the site and log bugs, but I really would appreciate your feedback. And look, what I ask is if there's anybody that you know that has had a disgruntled situation with the healthcare system, or anybody that you know that is worried about losing their assets if something goes wrong with their health, please send them a link to this website. Just pick one person. I know everybody listening to this knows at least one person. Send them a link to the site. I think this has the potential. It has to be done properly. The website has to be easy to use. It has to be engaging. But I'm telling you, I do believe this can go viral. And the medical tourism thing is just part one. Part one is you don't have to get stuck getting fleeced by our broken health insurance scam. Step two, here are tools that you can use on your own for free to know about your own health and get access to different information than you're going to get through the system that we have that wants to make you sick. And then level three is you're going to be able to interact with and communicate with other people privately and collaborate on solutions to solve health challenges. Or it doesn't even need to be a challenge. Maybe it's you want to optimize yourself. It's not always a bad case scenario. But at the end of this could be a platform that I want this to be about empowering people across the board. But the first point of it is people have to not get stuck. Don't be stuck in a job you don't like for insurance that will not protect your assets, and you're still going to go bankrupt anyway. And I hope, if anything, I'll do this in shorter videos. I'll do it in songs. I'll do it in videos. I will share other people's stories on this. But if that is you, if you're listening to this and you hate your job and you're only doing it because you think the insurance will save you from having your house stolen, it won't. And then once you realize that, maybe you'll shift your thinking and think, hey, you know what, maybe I don't need this job. Maybe I should start thinking about what other things I could do with my life. What is my real purpose? So, so anyway, Sylvia says, we have a trust, but I think we need to update it. The medical trust part is very interesting. Yeah, look into it, and and let me know if the site is helpful for you in figuring this out. Let me know if the search feature, if the chat bot and everything else, if you are interacting with the site and it's not answering questions that you have, please let me know that too, because I know I need to add more information in here. I just need to figure out which information to get in here and how to make it as truly easy and accessible as possible. So, all right, well, if there aren't any other questions, or if no one else is going to hop on, I'm going to I'm going to call it a night. We will be back on Monday at 6 p.m. Not sure what the topic is going to be yet, but I will say, so all 6 of the websites, well, including Daylight, that are listed, those will all be fully ready by the end of January. So I've felt this pressure starting in this summer, where I'm like, I know that the key part for me in all of this is just to put together tools to empower other people. It's not necessarily me writing content or talking about this stuff. It's trying to figure out how to put together these tools. So I feel a very compelled and a strong sense of pressure to get these tools out so that people can understand their current situation. Understand that you've signed contracts. You don't own what you think you own. When you look at your mortgage, when you look at your bank contract, when you look at your investment portfolio, when you look at your health insurance agreements, you already don't own 80% of what you think you own. And once you have that realization, then maybe you'll say, hey, you know what? What is it that I'm protecting here? Why am I out of fear holding on to these things? Then we go to the next phase. All right, what do we do about it? Okay, well, let's stop using the dollar. Let's use privacy coins like Zano. Let's use Freedom Dollar. Let's stop fueling and funding and sowing the seeds of our own destruction by empowering these technocrats, by letting them control our money, because our money is it's our energy, and it's how we are able to engage in voluntary, supposedly, transactions with other people. Then how can I take care of my health? And then beyond that, like I said, I think food and energy are next. But understand, this is why I created freedomforge.io. Just as this is an alternative system for healthcare, and I think hopefully you're starting to see how this could be a completely alternative system. It's not here's a new way of funding an HSA. This is you're unplugged from the system. You are engaging in healthcare in a completely different way. That's one thing. Well, maybe we can do this with food. Maybe we stop, going to these grocery stores, and maybe we put together a network of farms around the world with a reputation management system, and maybe we start buying our food and buying our produce locally. Maybe we can figure out a way to do this with energy. Maybe we can tie in some off-grid stuff, whatever. But hopefully people's minds will start thinking, you know what? If I don't have to be stuck in this insurance thing, if this insurance thing is a scam, but I've believed and I've orchestrated my entire life around trying to have this insurance, or otherwise I'm going to, be impoverished and be homeless. If it turns out that's a scam and there are other solutions, what other solutions are there out there to other problems that I've assumed can't be fixed? And that's where privacy tokenization is key, because it gives you the ability to tokenize and trade any kind of asset, create any kind of marketplace, create any kind of solution that isn't monitored and controlled and tethered to what is increasingly a technocratic system. This is why I'm excited about it. There's when people say, people are like, well, how am I going to make money outside of the system? Everything that currently exists in a centralized form that is currently on the march towards technocracy can be recreated in a way that is private and decentralized. So the actual opportunities are unlimited. Now, how to go about doing that? This is tough. Like, how do I learn how to use these technologies? How do I learn to do this stuff? This is where I say, this is why the most important thing you can do is not buy Bitcoin or buy an ETF or sit around trying to guess which asset's going to lose less value relative to others, but invest in yourself, invest in knowledge, invest in skills. And everyone can do this. Anyone if you're passionate about something, if there's something that, if you find your true passion and the thing that you love, then you will be interested and your attention will be focused on it and you can learn it. Everybody can do this. We've been beaten down to think that we can't, but that is absolutely not true. And by the way, I've talked about this too, that the educational system was hijacked specifically by Rockefeller to do this with the Bell system and everything else, to train people to be worker bees within a factory environment. He didn't want people that were creative. He didn't want an educational system that would train people that might actually build competitive offerings. He wanted worker bees that worked in shifts. He wanted men and women. He wanted a situation where women could enter the workforce, because basically the educational system was providing daycare, grooming people to be worker bees. That is the basis of our modern education system. So it's hard to get people out of that trap, because literally everybody assumes that that's just the way that it's supposed to be. None of that is true. None of that is the way that it has to be. We do have free will, and I certainly hope we start to use it. And I hope any of this is helpful, or at least some of it is helpful. But I'm going to keep on. I'm going to keep on pushing this. This is 100% what I'm doing. This is 100% what my wife is doing, and so I hope more people jump in, and maybe we can get out of this mess and actually have a better future, not a situation where we're focused on survival, but we're actually creating a better world and a more empowered world for ourselves, our families, and everyone around us. So with one last thing, call guard at Liberty Conspiracy. You need some more access on Rumble. If you could DM me on that, that would be great. I would, getting access on Rumble is a bit of a challenge. So thank you, California Contrarian. I appreciate that. And again, I hope it helps. And I really, truly do want your feedback, especially critical feedback, because if these tools aren't helpful for people, then I failed. I'm trying to be helpful, and again, sometimes I'm in the weeds. So I look forward to any feedback you can get. All right, with that, I'm going to play the song again, the one I just played. I really like the song, so I'm going to play that on the way out, and hopefully I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a good night.
Live free or die, but death's not the worst. It's waking up empty, it's dying of thirst. Trading your days for insurance and pills, while the machine builds your cage and you're paying the bill. Quiet desperation, that's the real grave. A life half lived as a comfortable slave. This ain't what you were born for, you know it's true. You feel it in your chest, breaking through. They're wiring the walls, closing in, tracking your dollars underneath your skin. Left and right, same throne, same crown. No one stands up, no one makes a sound. They hand you a ballot like it means something real. Two wings of one bird, same deal, same steel. We say no.